Welcome, everyone. This is your friend, the DN What If, here with another exciting fanfiction. Today, we're diving into the story of What If Deku Learned World Domination from Nezu? If you enjoy this video, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe for more fanfiction content just like this. Now, let's get started with the fanfic. Nedzu sat back in his chair with a eyes darting over the screen in amusement. He had always found chess rather boring, simple in its complexity, and after thoroughly trouncing every opponent in Japan, he had moved on to other strategy games, those certainly less common than something as ancient as chess. One such game he was rather fond of was terraforming Mars. As the name suggests, you start with the red planet with no oxygen, low temperature, and no water or greenery to speak of. Through the course of the game, using cards and your corporate abilities and specialties, you make an infrastructure to hopefully terraform the most of Mars and claim dominion over the planet. It can play several people, up to 5, but Nedzu always preferred a single-player or 2-player game, despite 3 players being the most popular. It was a card-based board game, which translated well to the online mode, and each game was different. Of course, certain strategies could be utilized in all games, but the corporation you represented changed every game, and each had its own specialty and abilities. There were more in the expansions, of course, but some of the basic corporations were very exciting. For example, Ecoline lets you start with 2 plant production, 3 plant resources in hand, and 36 MC, or the game currency, at the start of the game. Furthermore, when placing a greenery tile, it will cost you 7 plants instead of 8, like it would for most others. Since greenery tiles directly translate into victory points at the end of the game, this corporation will likely focus heavily on plant production and greenery. Another interesting one is Inventrix. You draw 3 cards for free at the start of the game, where otherwise you have to pay 3 MC per card, and you start with 45 MC. Whenever a card has a specific requirement, like having the oxygen above or below a certain level or the temperature or number of oceans, the requirements can be changed by +2 or -2 steps, your choice. Surely handy for cards that have XPLCT requirements, and you get starting cards besides. All in all, the game was different every time, some things left entirely up to chance, and that was something that excited Nedzu like nothing else. Unlike in chess, where the most diversity you get is which side you play, terraforming Mars is different every round. No 2 games will be the same based on the luck of the draw for the cards, even if the players played exactly the same way every time. It was simply fascinating. Plus, Nedzu quite liked the idea of terraforming and owning a planet. Space travel had declined when quirks first came along, so it was not something he was likely to have happen, but it was an entertaining idea. In addition, he supposed that being the principal of UA was a bit like terraforming a planet. Cultivate the right environment, and all that. He felt he knew many of the people who often played, finding himself playing at the same time every day in the hopes of meeting one specific player. More often than not, he did indeed find them. It was rare that people would end up in a match with him and not leave, at this point, taking one look at his username, redacted, and disconnecting. Disheartening, sure, but there was one player, Green Bean, who always stayed, sending a hi smiley face in the in-game text chat. In all honesty, he wasn't that upset that people didn't play with him, because it meant he could go a few games with Green Bean instead, which was always a treat. Even if Nedzu won, the games were very close, and the other player always gave fun reactions to actions in the chat, which Nedzu could not help but indulge. The person was very smart, and Nedzu enjoyed the time at the end of the day, when schools and most work got out, when he got to play with them. After several months, Nedzu would posit they were friends, or at least friendly, having talked a few times about curious science topics, some related to the game, some not, when Green Bean asked a question out of the blue. Green Bean, can I ask you a question? Redacted, of course. Green Bean, how do I get my classmates to stop hitting me? And Nedzu stopped. There were a few things wrong with that. 1. This was a child, someone still in school. He had guessed they were in late middle school or early high school despite their intelligence based on their manner of speaking, but to have it confirmed in perhaps the worst way made his heart stutter before he went into principal mode. Redacted, why are they hitting you? Are the teachers doing nothing? Green Bean, I get in their way, I guess. And no, not really. Nedzu's face was carefully blank. Redacted. Green, them hitting you is not your fault, you know that, yes? Green bean. If I didn't get in their way, if I was better at running, I'd probably be fine. Green bean. It doesn't even hurt as much anymore, but I'm running out of things to tell my mom. His whiskers twitched. Redacted. Why aren't the teachers doing anything? Green bean. There was a pause, the game long since stalled, but Nedzu waited. Green bean. I'm quirkless? Nedzu felt confusion first. Quirkless? Certainly uncommon, but that meant this child, and there was the anger again, was frighteningly intelligent all on his own. Anger came shortly after that thought. How ridiculous. Humans would try to find any reason to beat others down, even those of their own kind, and this child was kind, intelligent, and curious, all traits Nedzu was constantly looking for in students. Green bean. I understand if you don't want to play anymore. Green bean. Honestly, I should probably just keep to myself. Green bean. I really like the games we did play. Nedzu pushed down his anger to reassure his gaming partner. Redacted. Why would I stop playing with you because of something you cannot control? Redacted. In addition, you are one of the only ones who can go toe-to-toe with me, and that's without an intelligence quirk like mine. Very impressive, Green. He knew the quirkless statistics. It was part of the reason he had lifted the ban on quirkless students, hoping that if UA led the charge, other high schools would stop the discrimination for a subset of people who were just as capable and arguably far less of a liability than most people. His snout twitched in amusement as the child immediately latched on to his quirk. Quirks had been a favorite topic of them both, but they had thus far avoided talking about their own. Still, Green Bean had revealed their status. It was only fair Nedzu do the same, plus, it effectively got the child off the spiral of negative self-worth, no doubt enforced in their school. Green Bean. Oh wow, that's pretty rare. Green Bean. And it makes a lot of sense, you're really good at this game, smiley face. Green Bean. There aren't many heroes with an intelligence quirk, but I know Nedzu, the principal of UA is one, and he's really cool. Green Bean. Does it speed up your mental processes or make you better at retaining information? Green Bean. Oh, does it give you multitasking abilities? I know current research says most people can't actually multitask effectively, so that'd be a really cool quirk, but it would probably require multiple processing systems since the human brain isn't designed to handle multiple thought processes simultaneously. Redacted. There are actually other heroes with intelligence-based quirks, but it technically does all of those things. Redacted. Perhaps not the multitasking as, like you said, it's not very effective, but my thoughts are indeed very fast and I am rather good at retaining information. Green Bean. That's so cool. What do you call it? Nedzu smiled to himself. Redacted. High specs, of course. Smiley face. Green Bean. Whoa, that's the name of Nedzu's. Do you have the same quirk as him? Redacted. I certainly hope so. Redacted. After all, I am him. He chuckled, glad to have gotten off the topic of the bullying, even if he would likely go back to it eventually as Green Bean typed, then deleted, typed, then deleted, and Nedzu was more than patient with the response. Green Bean? Green Bean, you're Nedzu? Green Bean, wait, is this a prank? Nedzu's heart fell. Redacted. I can assure you it's not. If you would like, you can send me an email, and I will reply with a code word of your choosing. Green Bean. Wait, are you sure? Redacted. Perfectly. Nedzu's, or I suppose, my email is public knowledge on the UA website. Make the subject of your email your favorite corporation, perhaps. Green Bean. Okay. Green Bean. Oh, the code word is Green Bean. Katsudan. Nedzu smiled and tabbed out of the game, opening his email and refreshing every few seconds until he got an email from one smallmite08@mail.yahoo.co.jp with the subject line, Teractor, an Earth-based corporation. The message was a simple hello and nothing more, and he was quick to send back the given code word with a smiley face. Tabbing back into the game as soon as it's sent. Redacted. Sent, smiley face. Green Bean. Hocksketzt. Green Bean, you're really Nedzu? Green Bean, I've been talking to Nedzu? Green Bean, I've been playing games with Nedzu? Redacted, and won several too. Green Bean, oh holy moly, I've beaten Nedzu before. Green Bean, at a strategy game. Green Bean, okay, I can die happy now. Green Bean, thank you, Nedzu sir, for playing games with me. I know you're probably pretty busy. Redacted, nonsense, I look forward to meeting you on the battlefield every evening, smiley face. Green Bean, oh geez, I play video games with the principal of UA almost every day. Green Bean, hang on, I'm going to need a minute. Redacted, on a different topic, Teractor is your favorite corporation? Green Bean, oh, I like playing Earth cards anyway, so getting a cost reduction on them is nice. Plus it's like an homage to home, right? Redacted, quite right. I imagine the 60 starting cash doesn't hurt either? Green Bean, oh no, gives me flexibility early game. Green Bean, if not I like Ecoline. Redacted, that would have been my guess, from your name. You seem to favor greenery and oceans rather than cities. Green Bean, yeah, I guess I do. Redacted, tell me Green, you know who I am, what can I call you? Redacted, unless you'd rather I go with Green like usual, or perhaps Small Might, winky face. Green Bean, Axjacked, I forgot that was my email address, dash. Green Bean, you can call me Izuku. Green Bean, if you want to. Redacted, of course, Izuku. And of course, you can call me Nedzu, smiley face. Redacted, now, shall we finish this game? Green Bean, oh, let's. Nedzu smiled, tabbing out briefly to put in a request with the police for any files they had on a quirkless boy named Izuku. He was not going to let the question from earlier go unpunished for whoever dared to put down this kind, smart child. There would be hell to pay. Izuku was freaking out, even as he placed another greenery tile. He thought, Nedzu was right, I do place a lot of greenery. God, Nedzu. He had been playing with Nedzu all this time? Sure, looking back, Redacted was a great player, the best he had ever found at his tender age of 8, having played this game for a few months by now, and the name fit the cryptid principal of the most prestigious high school in Japan, especially since no one really knew what he was, species-wise, and he refused to confirm anything, seemingly reveling in the confusion. He wasn't sure what had made him ask the question. Sure, he was getting bullied at school, that was a fact he was slowly starting to accept. No matter how much Kaken had been his friend not 4 years ago, as soon as Izuku was revealed to really be quirkless, that went out the window. He guessed it was because Kaken and the others had started using the quirks on him. It hadn't been as bad before. Sure, it hurt, he had been lying when he told Nedzu it, didn't even hurt as much anymore. But he was running out of things to tell his mom. Cuts and bruises were one thing, he could pass those off as being clumsy, or playing too rough, but burns and minor stab wounds. The kid who could elongate his fingers discovered recently that if he grew his fingers really fast they had a chance to puncture skin, only about 1/4 centimeter deep, but still enough to draw blood, like he was stabbed by a particularly vicious pencil, were much harder to explain away. For now he just tried to hide them, and the bullies were smart enough to avoid his face, but he had thought that maybe his smart and kind friend would be able to help him. He should have known he'd ask questions, they always did before they found out he was worthless and deserved it. But then Nedzu said he didn't. He said it wasn't Izuku's fault, which didn't make sense. At the age of 6, his teachers had inadvertently reinforced what Kaken had been telling him, quirkless is useless, and he deserved it. After all, why else would the teachers look the other way, or even go as far as to scold Izuku for riling up the other kids? It was his fault. But Nedzu was really smart, arguably the smartest person in Japan, if not the world, so he probably knew what he was talking about. He definitely believed what he said, for sure. Unless it was a prank. But no, why would it be a prank? Nedzu had humored him rambling about his quirk when he knew Izuku was quirkless, had even finished the game and offered to play another one besides. That wasn't something someone would do, right? Sure, people had pretended to be his friend before, but he had proof that this was indeed Nedzu, because he doubted even the best hacker could pretend to send an email from Nedzu's own, and he wouldn't even get to see Izuku's face when he revealed it was all a trick, since he didn't know anything about him, really. He knew his name and quirk status. Was that enough for someone to find him? Probably not just any random person, but this was Nedzu they were talking about, Almost nothing seemed impossible for the principal of UA, so maybe he'd find him just to tell him what everyone else did. Sure, it seemed like a lot of trouble to go through for some random kid, but then again, Izuku had been playing TM with him for months at this point. Time Nedzu was never going to get back. But he had called Izuku one of the only people who could go toe-to-toe with him, which was insanely flattering. Sure, he didn't win often, but he won every once in a while, and he imagined the feeling was like what having friends would be like, pure euphoria. Maybe he could actually get a friend this time, and if it happened to be the principal of UA and his gaming friend, then no one could really fault him for that. Inko liked to think she was a good parent. When she got P-Argent and T, she started taking more hours in preparation for the time she wouldn't be able to work when raising her child. When she gave birth 2 weeks early and her baby boy had to spend some time in the intensive care unit, she stayed by his side, reading him stories and getting herself healthy so she'd be ready to take care of him when they could take him home. When he was healthy enough to come home and interact with the world, she got in contact with her friend Mitsuki again and arranged playdates for their sons, ensuring he'd grow up with a friend. When he had fallen in love with heroes and All Might, she bought him toys and played videos for him and pretended to be in danger just so he could save her. When he had been diagnosed quirkless, she apologized. Clearly something was wrong with her, because nothing could be wrong with her baby. When Hisashi left, she stayed. She knew that that wasn't enough, of course. She knew she wasn't enough when her baby's entire world came crashing down with one doctor's visit, but she was so lost. She wasn't like Mitsuki, she wasn't like Masaru, and she certainly wasn't like Hisashi. She was just Inko, and she felt like that wasn't enough. It wasn't enough the first time her baby had come home all bruised and scratched up. He told her he was simply clumsy while playing, and she chose to believe him, pushing away the fact that he had never come home this beaten up before, not before the diagnosis. It wasn't enough when the light slowly left his eyes and he got quieter and quieter. He used to talk and talk and talk, all the time without stopping. Now he would catch himself and stop, sitting in silence and staring off into space, lost in his head. It wasn't enough when he finally stopped trying to play outside and asked her to help him set up a Steam account, which was a gaming client, apparently. It would let him play any number of games if he wanted to, so that he could interact with people over the internet instead of in person. That way, they could only hurt him with words he could mute if he needed to. There, people could see her baby being brilliant and they never had to know he was quirkless. Of course, he didn't always play multiplayer games. He played one game she found rather cute, Stardew Valley, and he was quick to show her all of the lovely people of the town. He got so excited when one of the characters would send him a recipe, and he loved to give them gifts. "Look, Mommy," he said one day, pointing at one of the characters, "it's you. Her name is Jody, she has 2 sons and her husband is gone, but she's really nice. She invited me to dinner pretty early, and she's always doing her best." Inko had smiled softly. Jody did seem very nice, and she had 2 boys of her own, both with rather crazy hair, much like her baby. Color Vincent's hair green, make it the little collier, and it was just like him. She noticed him getting happier as time went on. He would come home from school, no doubt hiding a new injury that if she saw he would laugh off and make up an excuse for, and he would play games until dinner. After he would help her with the dishes and chat about how much fun he had had, sometimes thanking her again for letting him get an account, and she would smile and say of course, like it didn't break her heart every time he came home with a new bruise. Then one day she noticed the burns. She hadn't wanted to consider that Mitsuki's child had been one of the ones to latch on to her baby's quirklessness and equate it to uselessness, being one of his bullies and attackers. They had been such good friends growing up, but she had started to notice things when they'd go over for dinner, things the boy no doubt tried to hide from her. That meant he knew it was wrong, that hurting her baby wasn't something he should do, so maybe he wouldn't, maybe he'd stop. But no one else at his school had a fire-based quirk. Inko had checked. In the entire school, no one could burn her baby except Katsuki, someone who was supposed to be his friend. She had to accept the reality that not only was her baby getting bullied, getting hurt, but that he wasn't telling her about it. She didn't point out the burns, and he didn't either. She ached for him to tell her, to trust her, but he just smiled and said school was fine. She wasn't enough. She didn't know if she ever would be. Nedzu hummed in delight, sipping his tea as he walked the halls of UA with a file in hand. He barely noticed people scurrying out of the way, looking terrified that their diminutive principal was humming and smiling as he read the file once more. On one hand, he was even more livid than before. Midoriya Izuku, age 8, quirkless, living in Mustafa with his mother and attending Aldra Elementary. To think that an 8-year-old was being bullied over something as inconsequential as whether or not he had a quirk was almost enough for his grip on his teacup to tighten just enough to snap the handle off. But the teacup was spared by how, on the other hand, he was very excited. Midoriya Izuku, age 8, quirkless, and one of the smartest humans he had ever come across at age 8. Most of his 14 to 18-year-old students were not as clever as Izuku was, and Nedzu was delighted with the prospect of getting to know him and hone his mind to even greater heights, should the boy wish to. Hopefully, he could convince the boy's mother that homeschooling really was the best option for Izuku, and of course, Nedzu would be happy to take on the role of his teacher. Really, many of his principal duties could be automated to a degree that would give him ample time to teach Izuku all the ways that humans ticked and how to use that to your advantage. Maybe he'd start a bit smaller, but all in good time, of course. He peeked into one of the rooms and smiled again. "Ah, Aizawa, just the man I was looking for. I wanted to let you know I'm going off campus and have a note on my door saying all questions and complaints should go to you. Just thought I'd let you know ahead of time." The underground hero's eyes widened slightly and he started to say, "Nedzu, wait," like that would stop him when he was on a mission, and Nedzu smiled again before closing the door, completely aware of the chaos he had just unleashed on the poor man's class. Eraserhead had just started working for him, along with 2 of his classmates, Yamada Hizashi, better known as Present Mike, and Kiyama Nimuri, better known as Midnight, but already he was proving Nedzu right, one of his certainly more tolerable humans to be completely honest. Plus, he was harsh and a little vindictive, something Nedzu thrived in. Still, that was only enough for Nedzu to give him a heads up that he was essentially in charge at the tender age of 23, definitely the youngest member of the staff. Oh well, a few hours probably wouldn't kill him. He had a person to find. Izuku was tired. It had been another day at school just like all the rest, but today it just made him tired. He felt the ache almost deep in his bones, though his injuries were only skin deep, and he barely noticed anything on his walk home. His arms stung and he tried to keep them steady, locking up his elbows and keeping a death grip on the yellow straps of his backpack. The less he jostled them, the less it hurt after all. The day had gone by painfully slowly, but it was finally over, and he could just play games until dinner like always, avoiding his mother's questions like a seasoned pro. No more Kaken, no more goons, no more teachers looking the other way, no more getting in trouble for things he either didn't do and couldn't do, or things he was in fact the victim of. Sometimes he wished he didn't have to go to school. This morning had been particularly bad, with his desk absolutely covered in marker. The teacher had made him clean it off and he had lunch detention for vandalizing school property, despite the fact that the teacher had been in the room before Izuku and watched him see the words for the first time. Kaken had pushed his food on the ground, making it inedible, and because of lunch detention he couldn't stay out of the classroom until the last minute like he usually did, so everyone got 5 minutes of, "How much damage can we do before Deku cries?" Turns out not a lot. That didn't seem to stop them though. Kaken had burned his worksheet again, so he had nothing to turn in at the end of class, earning him another 0, and then he had grasped his arm during PE, pretending to help him up when he was the one who had tripped him in the first place. "Clumsy Deku," he scoffed, hand burning, "you keep effing tripping. One of these days you'll snap your neck on your way down." A little morbid for an 8-year-old to say, but he had probably heard it somewhere or seen it on TV. He probably didn't grasp the concept that that would likely kill Izuku. Not even Kaken wanted that. No one had quite gotten bold enough to literally tell him to die. He knew it was coming though. He read enough forum posts from other quirkless people to know it was just a matter of time. He really hoped that time didn't come for a good long while. He reached his apartment listlessly, pausing to scrounge his face into a smile and checking to make sure his wounds were all covered before opening the door and stepping inside. "I'm home." "Oh, Izuku," he heard his mom from the living room as he toed off his shoes. "You have a guest, sweetie." He paused. That couldn't be right. A guest? He muttered, brow furrowed even as he walked further into the apartment, rounding the corner to the living room and freezing. Hello, Izuku. Your mother makes lovely tea, did you know that? He could feel his brain rebooting as he just stared, not even blinking. He vaguely registered his backpack falling, from his hand to the ground, with a thud. He opened and closed his mouth a few times, and his mother chuckled. Izuku, aren't you going to greet your guest? Izuku blinked once more, taking in the white rodent in a suit calmly sipping tea on their couch and promptly passed out. Nedzu set down his teacup gently as Inko immediately shot to her feet, completely flustered. Entirely understandable, as her child has just slammed his head onto the floor. He had expected some reaction, of course, but nothing this extreme, to be certain. Izuku passing out did not enter into the realm of possibilities when Nedzu had pictured how this meeting would go. Then, when Inko grabbed his arms to lift him up, he hissed, coming back awake from pain that Nedzu, perhaps, understood how it had come to this, and was reasonably upset. He only wanted to burn down one building that seemed completely reasonable. That it happened to be Aldra Elementary was for convenience and nothing else. Inko hurriedly guided her son, and he certainly was tiny, to the couch before rushing off to get a first aid kit, and Nedzu hopped down, making his way over. I'm sorry for startling you, Izuku. Are you all right? Did you hit your head? Green eyes blinked at him before the boy shook his head, seemingly incredibly shy now that there wasn't a screen in the way. Nedzu gently patted the boy on the knee. Excellent, head injuries are always the worst. Here is your mother with the first aid kit. Izuku, she blubbered, what happened, baby? He looked away, trying to smile. It's nothing, I just tripped during PE and scraped my arms on the ground. She fussed over him until he reluctantly took off his uniform top, revealing angry red burns, borderline second degree, but not quite there yet. Both adults stilled. Izuku, she said gently, eyes brimming with tears again, those aren't scrapes. He winced as she dabbed on burn cream. It's nothing really. I'm fine. Nedzu climbed on the couch next to him. You must be wondering why I'm here, or how I found you in the first place. Izuku blinked at the sudden topic change, but Nedzu merely smiled, unperturbed. I mean, the small boy started, you're Nedzu, and you had my name, I figure if you really wanted to find me you could. And so I did. I do greatly enjoy our time together, and will admit I was rather worried after our conversation a few days ago, so I came up with a plan I think will benefit us both. Izuku merely blinked at him. I have already informed your mother, of course, in our lovely chat over tea in the hour before you arrived. I assumed the best time to catch you would be our usual gaming time, but wanted to meet your mother beforehand, and I must say, she is a lovely woman. Inko blushed bashfully, turning away even as she put away the first aid kit, and he smiled to himself. Of course, that wasn't the only reason he had come early. If he was being bullied at school, Nedzu wanted to ensure he was safe at home. He could assume, of course, with the ability to play computer games, that he at least had some measure of freedom. However, you could also play computer games while locked in your room, so Nedzu had wanted to be sure he wouldn't have to immediately claim this child as a ward of UA. Luckily, Inko was lovely, if a bit overwhelmed by virtue of being a single parent. And what would that be, sir? Nedzu chuckled. Come now, we're friends, no need for that. But yes, I was wondering if you'd like to be homeschooled instead of attending public school. Izuku's eyes immediately welled up with tears, but he managed to pause them when he frowned in confusion. But Mum isn't a teacher, would I be taking classes online instead? No, I was wondering if you'd like to be my personal student. The boy blanched, mouth gaping like a fish, and Nedzu smiled to himself. But you're Nedzu. Yes, and you're Izuku. He shook his head rapidly, green curls bouncing and hands waving fervently. No, I mean you're the principal of UA, I can't just be taught by you. And yet, I am offering. Nedzu was practically beaming at this point, forcing his tail not to wag and his feet not to swing. He was giddy at the prospect, but best to stay professional and calm if he could help it. Inko placed a hand on his shoulder, carefully avoiding the burns she had treated. Sweetie, I think it would be good for you. Plus, He's the smartest hero, like you always say, and you've always wanted to go to you, even if it was a little later. He looked up at his mother in shock. You think I should do it? She nodded and sniffed. I know you don't always tell me everything, but I also know that school it's not kind to you, Izuku. You're most happy when you're playing your games, and I know most of the stories you've told me at dinner these past few months have been about one specific player, and he's currently sitting on our couch. Nedzu cooed to himself. Ah, tales of their battles at the dinner table? It was incredibly endearing. He supposed that if he had someone he regularly talked to, he would also talk about the clever plays either he or his opponent had come up with. Izuku bit his lip and looked back at Nedzu with wide green eyes. Are you sure? Nedzu smiled. Of course. Then I would like that very much, please. Excellent. We can start tomorrow. Back at Yue, Aizawa Shoyuda felt a shiver go down his spine. Izuku found himself on a train, heading towards UA, backpack in hand. It had always been his dream to go to UA one day, as a student no less, because it was the best hero school ever. Even All Might went there. He had assumed, however, that this would happen later, when he was 14, and this was his high school. But here he was, age 8, and yes, technically a student here. He looked up at the H-shaped building and walked through the gate with a deep breath. Nedzu had given him a pass so the gate wouldn't lock him out, but other than that, had not given the boy directions. It will be a fun puzzle. All you have to do is find my office. Worry not, it won't be difficult for you, and the staff does know you're coming. It would be fine. Kayama Namuri had a free block in the morning, so she used it to plan her lessons, like any responsible teacher would. If she happened to not get much done, it was because it was first thing in the morning, so really, who could blame her? She stepped outside to go to the bathroom with a sigh before she bumped into something that barely came up to her knees. She blinked and looked down, seeing a small child. Oh, hello there, little guy. How'd you get in here? If security had failed so that a random child could just walk into UA, someone was going to die. Oh, hello Miss Midnight. Wait, he recognized her. What the hell? I walked? I had the pass, so the gates didn't close. How did you get a pass, kiddo? Nedzu gave it to me? What? Why would Nedzu give a pass to this tiny kid? Wait a minute. She paled and swallowed. How old are you, sweetheart? He blinked up at her shy. I'm 8, Ms. Midnight. Sweet Lord, Nedzu's personal student was FING 8 years old. The rest of the staff needed to be informed before it was too late. Maybe they could still get the kid out before it was too late and the rat corrupted his mind. They did not need another Nedzu running around, and this kid looked really sweet. Can you help me find his office? He never said I couldn't ask for help. No, it really was too late. She could not take the kid to Nedzu at this point. He definitely had eyes on the situation and would know if she tried to defy him. God, they were all gonna die. Of course, she tried to smile cheerily. You just come with me, Han. He smiled and her heart melted a little. Maybe Nedzu couldn't corrupt this pure kiddo. Maybe they'd be fine. Ah, thank you, Kayama. He greeted her before the door was even fully open, and she watched the green boy light up at the sight of the rat. Wonderful to see you, Izuku, and you made such good time. Good use of your resources. The boy, Izuku, smiled bashfully and bowed at her. Thank you, Ms. Midnight. She smiled. Of course. She turned to go. But the rat stopped her. And Kayama, perhaps keep all rumors of my student to yourself, I think everyone should have the chance to meet Izuku themselves, without previous bias. They're already biased, she screamed internally, because he's your personal student. You just want to revel in their reactions at seeing how young this kid is and be even more terrified. Sure thing, boss, she said out loud. God, this was going to be a nightmare, and she couldn't even tell anyone so they could share her pain. As the door closed behind the pro-hero, Nedzu's whiskers twitched in amusement. He could sense her bewilderment and distress, of course, and had a relatively idea of what was running through her head, but it was very amusing to watch her on the cameras when she realized exactly why Izuku was there. Wonderful. I trust the train ride was uneventful? The boy nodded. Good, no complications then. Very well, now, I do have to technically teach you the curriculum for your year, But I know you favor science, yes? Quirk science specifically. Izuku nodded rapidly, eyes sparkling. Yeah. Have you looked into the study of psychology at all? That's the study of the brain, right? Nedzu grinned. Correct. I imagine if you had an understanding of how the human brain works, it might assist you in your quirk study endeavors. Of course, we could always learn the basic school stuffs, but it's up to you. The boy blinked, contemplative. It would be neat. Nedzu sat back in his chair. How about this? We can try a lesson, and if you like it, we can continue. Izuku brightened and nodded. Okay. Excellent. First, we will learn about the different areas of the brain. Izuku very much liked psychology, he found. It was just so fascinating to learn about the different components of the brain and how they all work together. For example, at the back of his head, he had his occipital lobe that took in the information from his eyes and figured out what he was seeing by talking to the other centers in his brain. But what if I was blind? Izuku asked. Then my eyes aren't sending any information. An excellent question. Which brings us to a new topic, neural plasticity. Apparently, when you were really young, your brain was just figuring out how it was going to work and devoting areas of the brain to specific things. That was why people were only considered fully mature around the age of 25. That was when their brains stopped figuring themselves out. Because it was still figuring out how to do things, it had a pretty high plasticity, or ability to change. If someone lost half of their brain, for example, the other half would adapt to compensate for that loss. In the case of blind people, the whole occipital lobe was appropriated for other things based on what the person was most likely to need help on. What are some of the things a blind person might need to be better at? Nedzu's question had made perfect sense to Izuku. Blind people would need to be able to hear better, like bats, and maybe touch better, since they read with their fingers, which had always seemed rather hard to Izuku. Indeed, Nedzu had smiled, there are often more neurons in the occipital lobe devoted to a blind person's sense of touch and sometimes their sense of hearing to help them perceive the world better. Very good, Izuku. And boy, if every lesson with Nedzu was like that, he would always want to come back. Psychology and the brain were so interesting to learn about. The idea that Izuku could lose half his brain right now and he would probably be okay because he was still young was flabbergasting and exciting. Now, how do you feel about board games? Izuku blinked. Oh sure. I don't really mind either way. Excellent. Come with me. He slid a box off of the shelf behind his desk and walked out of the office, Izuku trailing behind. He was taller than the principal, but not by much, so he had no trouble keeping up. They went back to the place Ms. Midnight had found him and Nedzu walked in, Izuku having no choice to follow, even as he recognized the teacher's lounge. Ah, Aizawa, ectoplasm, wonderful, you don't have class right now. Could I impress you for a game with me and Izuku? Izuku looked up at ectoplasm in wonder. Sure, he knew UA only employed heroes as teachers, especially after seeing Ms. Midnight, but to see another one in the flesh? He felt like he was going to vibrate out of his skin, but he managed to contain himself and offer a shy wave. The other man, Aizawa, didn't look nearly as familiar, but he sighed. This is your personal student, then? Yes, this is Izuku. Hello, Aizawa, sir. Kid, I am definitely not old enough to be a sir. Anyway, it depends on the game. It isn't one I've had you play before, don't worry. This will be new to everyone. In fact, even I have only read the rules. Ectoplasm sighed. Sir, that is more than enough for you, but something tells me I don't really get to say no. You would be correct. He hopped up to a table in the back of the room and Izuku sat himself nearby as Nedzu opened the box and started taking out cards and such. This game is called Sheriff of Nottingham. It is based somewhat on the old Robin Hood stories, and the goal is simple. We are each merchants trying to get our goods to market. Our goods options are apples, cheese, bread and chickens, and then, of course, contraband. The sheriff role will rotate between us, and everyone else will put cards in their bags. You declare what is in your bag, all legal of course, and the sheriff will determine if you can go to market or if he wants to search your bag. If you indeed have what you say you have, the sheriff has to pay you the penalty coins for every card he was wrong about, and you go to market. If he was right, and you don't have what you said you have, then you pay him the penalty gold for every card that's contraband and must discard. The penalty coins are listed in red on the bottom of the cards, 2 for regular goods and 4 for contraband. You can also bribe the sheriff to not check your bag, and then you go free. Deals are binding if and only if money exchanges hands and future promises are not held accountable. Are there any questions? Yes, Aizawa said. What's this on the side of the player mats? Ah, Nedzu purred. Those are endgame bonuses. The winner in the end is determined by who has the most money after all the goods you successfully brought to market are sold. There is a bonus for having the most and second most of any given good, including the contraband versions of the goods. You'll notice that chickens, which are worth 4 gold apiece, have the lowest bonus for having the most, whereas apples, worth 2 gold each, have the highest bonus, to even things out. How many cards can you take to market at once? Each player has 6 cards in their hand they can exchange with the discard or draw piles, but you can only take 5 cards to market. Izuku swallowed nervously. What does the sheriff do when the other players are picking out what to take to market? Nedzu grinned. Watching for hints, of course. If you watch someone pick up 3 apples, for example, and then they say they are bringing 4 cheese, you know that's ridiculous and can of course search their bag and take their money. Izuku nodded slowly. When you bribe the sheriff, does it have to be with money? The principal's grin sharpened. No you don't. You can promise things in your bag or in your stall. Of course, if you promise a contraband from your bag and you bring none to market, then you do not have to pay, seeing as there was no contraband in your bag. Aizawa raised an eyebrow at his question and he ducked his head with a blush. It made sense that if you ran out of money, you could pay in goods, so why couldn't you pay in goods otherwise? If there are no more questions, I believe we can start. They were each dealt 6 of the cards, the rest going into a draw pile with 3 face-up in a stack on either side for the discard piles. Ectoplasm was the first sheriff. Izuku had 2 chickens, an apple and 3 contraband silk, worth 8 gold, and 2 pepper, worth both of the discard piles had nothing but cheese and bread, so he took out the apple, discarded it, and drew from the top of the deck. Another apple. Nedzu went next, taking both the apple and 2 cards from the top of the deck, discarding 2 contraband, pepper and mead, worth 8, and another cheese, placing the cheese underneath the contraband to discourage people from taking it. Aizawa ignored that and took both contraband, discarding 2 bread. And now, Nedzu hummed, we place our goods in our bags. As soon as they are snapped shut, you can no longer remove the items inside until you are either searched or sent to market. Izuku worried his lip as he watched Nedzu put 4 cards into the bag. Aizawa. Putting 3. 2 chickens didn't seem like enough, even for the first turn. Wait, it was the first turn. He eyed the 3 red cards in his hand and blinked. He had a plan. He snapped the bag shut, placing the rest of his hand on the table and looking expectantly at Ectoplasm, that round's sheriff. He looked at Izuku first, narrowing his eyes. I have 3 chickens. Nedzu piped up next. 4 apples. 3 cheese. I can do this in any order, correct? Oh yes, you don't have to go in turn order. Ectoplasm wasted no time. Aizawa, there is no way, you didn't even take the cheese beneath the contraband, show me your bag. Aizawa wordlessly handed it over, face completely blank as Ectoplasm snapped it open, taking out the cards inside. 3 cheese. I believe you owe me 6 gold, Ecto. The cloning hero didn't say a word, handing over 6 of his starting 50 gold and Aizawa wordlessly slipped the 3 cheese by his player mat. Ecto glanced at Izuku once more before turning to Nedzu, sitting serenely and sipping tea. None of them were quite certain when he'd gotten and he nervously looked at the bag. 4 apples, you say? Yes. Ectoplasm considered it before he sighed. I really can't read you. Go ahead to market. Oh ho ho, Nedzu chuckled. You didn't want to check my bag? 4 apples is a lot. You know, I'm good, thanks. Nedzu smiled and unsnapped his bag, carefully laying out 4 apples on his tableau. A wise decision. Wouldn't want you to be 8 gold poorer after all. Izuku was the last one and he looked up at the hero, completely nervous. 3 chickens, you said? Yes, Mr. Ectoplasm, sir. He could feel the hero searching his eyes, but he didn't dare look away. Yeah, whatever, I hate that I had to go first, go to market, kid. Izuku silently smiled softly and snapped open his bag. He slid 3 face-down cards to the top of his tableau, where contraband goes. Ectoplasm and Aizawa both did a double take, but Nedzu just cackled. Oh yes, he murmured around his tea, looking at his completely innocent-looking student. This will be quite fun. Nedzu ended up winning the game, to no one's surprise. Between him and Izuku, they had most of the contraband, putting their scores much higher than either Aizawa or Ectoplasm. Ectoplasm found himself in last, Aizawa barely scraping by, but Izuku didn't think the man minded all that much, since he looked really tired of everything. Izuku was sad he only came in second, but it was his first time playing, and he didn't know much about what he was doing. He had discovered he wasn't the best at reading people, so his times as sheriff were awful, but people also didn't expect him to be lying every time, and when he developed a pattern, he switched it up and only brought the completely legal goods to market. The time he had declared 5 chickens had been very exciting, since having 5 cards to bring to market at once was rare, and he made a cool 10 gold when Aizawa decided to check him on it. He got caught a few times by Nedzu, of course, but the exhilarating feeling of slipping contraband past his mentor was incredible. Ectoplasm was an easy mark, Aizawa less so, but Nedzu was practically a fortress, so he would take any victories he could get, no matter how small. How did you like the game? Nedzu asked when they were back in his office to wrap up the day. It was fun. I liked the bribery aspect because it was a lot of weighing pros and cons and seeing how much money you can get out of people, but sneaking in contraband made me feel like I was getting away with something. He giggled, remembering the shocked look on Ectoplasm's face that first round when he had slipped 3 contraband out at once, not even having anything legal. One of his favorite things to do was pick up 2 or 3 of a card and then declare them when his whole bag was actually full of contraband. It was even better when it worked 2 or 3 rounds in a row, since clearly he must really have the cheese in his bag this time. There's no way he drew more contraband. He definitely did. A well-placed sigh after drawing formed the deck served his purposes well. It was quiet enough that it wasn't obvious, but loud enough that everyone probably heard it. A sigh on drawing meant all your cards were mismatched, and that meant you'd only have a small haul this time. 2 apples, clearly. Not a crossbow and silk, the 2 best contraband in the game, aside from the royal goods, at 9 and 8 gold respectively. Clearly not. I am glad you enjoyed it, Nedzu hummed, sipping his tea once more. We might only play games like that once a week, so you can get to know the other staff and practice against people who are not me, but it would be lovely to play different games with you. Ah, but it is time for you to catch the train home, isn't it? Izuku jumped, looking at the time. Oh yes it is. See you tomorrow, Nedzu-sensei. Nedzu waved goodbye to his pupil and Izuku bounded out the door, dragging his backpack with him as he hurried to the station. He'd have so much to tell his mom. In an elementary school across town, an angry blonde boy glared at the empty desk. Where the hell was the nerd? After another week of learning, alternating lessons with further study of the brain, technically, when I'm telling you of structure and function, it's not really psychology, but more neuroscience, but I do find it to be a good basis. And regular schooling, Nedzu cleared a space on his desk and brought out a deck of cards. Now, he said, this will not be something that is purely skill-based, and it doesn't require much manipulation, but it does help with logic and making decisions based on limited information. Izuku nodded eagerly as the principal dealt them each 6 cards, placing the other in a draw pile and flipping one over to form the discard. Please arrange your 6 cards like so, and do not look at them. Izuku watched as he arranged the cards into 2 rows of 3 and followed suit. Now, pick any column and flip them face up. He revealed an 8 and ace of clubs, Nedzu revealing a 6 of hearts and a 3 of spades. The concept of this game is simple. Your goal is to arrange your cards in a way that minimizes the value of the cards until all 6 are revealed. Number cards are of course worth their value, face cards are worth 10, kings are worth 0, and 4s are negative. In addition, if any column has the same number, 2 queens, 2 7s, etc., they negate each other and that column is worth 0 points. This also includes the 4s, So do be careful, Izuku. The rat chuckled, straightening his cards. I believe this is, perhaps, best learned through playing. Since I dealt, why don't you go first? You can either draw the face-up card and replace one of your own with it, discarding said card, or you can take a chance and draw from the top of the deck. However, if you do not place the card you draw and instead discard it, you must flip over one of your cards. Whenever you are ready, my friend. Izuku blinked and inspected the card that was currently face-up. It was a 6 of diamonds, not particularly helpful for him, so he decided to draw from the top of the deck. 6 of clubs. He sighed, looking at his 6 cards for face down, and went to discard the card, but then he stopped, looking at Nedzu's cards. Nedzu was showing if Izuku discarded this 6, he was basically giving him a free 0. He looked back at the 6 in his hands. He'd have to use it. Hesitantly, wanting to reveal more cards but praying he wasn't about to give Nedzu something useful, he replaced the card next to the ace, or the bottom middle, and placed the 6, flipping the card into the discard pile. He breathed a sigh of relief at the 7 of clubs. Ah, rather clever and a lucky draw. There aren't many cards below a 6, but enough to be scary. Nedzu drew the next card from the top of the deck and hummed before tossing onto the discard pile. Apparently, he didn't want the 5 of clubs, but he turned over his own bottom middle card, revealing the queen of clubs. My, we do have a lot of clubs out so early. Your turn. Izuku hummed. He certainly didn't want the 5 either, so he drew from the top of the deck, hoping maybe he'd get an 8 or an ace. His heart sank. Jack of diamonds. Well, with cards to spare and no desire to keep a face card other than a king, he discarded it, flipping over the last of his bottom cards, revealing the 8 of hearts. Nedzu was equally not keen on picking up the jack, and so drew from the top of the deck. His whiskers flicked in delight and he slipped the card under his 6, discarding that and revealing the 3 of hearts. Oh, lucky. Indeed. Izuku drew a card from the top of the deck again, and his eyes widened. The 4 of hearts. He looked down at his cards, worrying his lip over what he should replace. He could go for another of his face-down cards, but then he'd be one away from ending the game with plenty of points to his name, and he might be giving up something good. He could replace one of the cards below his 2 remaining face-down cards, but there was the possibility that one of them was also a 4, and that would negate their usefulness. He resolutely replaced his original 8 of clubs above the ace and discarded the, I was not the only one to get lucky this round. What a find! He grinned at his mentor, and his mentor grinned back before drawing a card. Ah, lovely a 2. He slipped the 2 of hearts in his bottom right corner, flipping up the card he was replacing. Oh dear! Izuku sat up straight, looking to see it was another 4, the 4 of spades. He quickly grabbed it from the discard pile and replaced his 6 with it, in the bottom middle. He grinned at his mentor. Better luck next time, Nedzu. Nedzu chuckled. Oh, the game isn't over yet. They played several more games of 6, as it was called, and Izuku found himself enjoying it. Knowing what cards were left, running probabilities, and weighing risk and reward to see if you wanted to flip up that final card, ending the round, was incredibly exciting. After all, you didn't have to have a low score, just lower than your opponent. Still, the game was mostly luck with a healthy dash of strategy, so Izuku found their win-loss ratio to be about 1-to-1, which was certainly rather fun to think about. He did end up winning that first game. The combination of the 2 negative 4s was too much for Nedzu to overcome, even with only 2 cards actually giving him any points by the end. 9 was still much higher than 3, after all. The next lesson they had that day was finally on some of the psychology principles that Izuku could use in everyday life. Nedzu called them tactics of persuasion, which really meant that you could use them to influence how people thought and get them to see your side better. There were, of course, the different types of arguments and how each one appealed to the emotional or logical side of your brain. There were also tactics like distraction that were simply fascinating. Apparently, the logic side of your brain, or System 2, the slow-thinking system could only hold so many pieces of information at once before it became overwhelmed. On the other hand, System 1, the fast-thinking emotional and intuitive side, was rather automatic and thus didn't need to hold information. They had studied this before quirks, apparently, in a way that seemed really simple and probably easy to recreate, so that's what Izuku did. Nedzu more than happy to enlist Aizawa's hero class into it. So, with lunch rush on board for the reward, Izuku went to work. He poked his head in the door. Hello. The students, previously in a study PRD, looked up at the young voice and Izuku shrank a bit under the 20 eyes that were suddenly on him, but Aizawa managed to save him. Izuku, what are you doing here? Oh, I'm doing an experiment for Nedzu? He said your class was free this block and could help me? Aizawa sighed. What do you need them to do? He brightened, very excited. It's simple. They will be given a series of numbers in one room, go to another room, and have to repeat them. That's it. And how many people do you need for this? Well, the more we have the better for the data. Aizawa sighed again. This is not mandatory. If you want to sit out, you can. The class erupted into excited babble, and Izuku heard one person say, "He's so cute, how can you say no to that face?" and blushed. We've prepared rooms for this, since we have to do it one at a time, if you want to follow me. It seemed like the entire class of 20 kids immediately got up to follow him as he led them to the halls that housed the meeting rooms, with the teacher lounge and the office where Nedzu was waiting at the end of the hall. If you could please wait in here, I'll come get you one at a time, if that's all right? He got a series of confirmations and nodded hesitantly. They were all so much bigger than him, and he was kind of tricking them. Sure, they were going to have to memorize the numbers given, but that wasn't technically the thing they were measuring in this experiment. Oh well, he would tell them after the fact. He took the first student into the meeting room next door and gave them a series of 7 numbers to memorize, giving them a moment before taking them back out and walking down the hall with them. About halfway there, he stopped. Oh, I almost forgot, as thanks for participating, Lunch Rush is offering a reward, and we wanted to know if you'd like cut-up fruit or a slice of cake. They startled, but mumbled, cake, before going back to repeating the numbers under their breath, and Izuku smiled at them before letting them into Nedzu's office where they repeated the numbers. It was going well. At the end of the experiment, all the students were in the otherwise empty cafeteria, eating cake or fruit. Some of the cake people were looking guilty that they hadn't picked the fruit, since they were hero students and wanted to keep healthy, but he did notice quite a few people guarding their slices against their fruit cup friends. Aizawa was standing against the wall with folded arms, and Nedzu and Izuku compared both who had selected what and who messed up, if anyone. The results were almost exactly as they should be, with some standard deviations. So, did you get what you were looking for? He grinned. Yes. This definitely proves the theory. One of the kids chuckled. On who's good at memorization and who isn't? I mean, it was 2 numbers, how hard could it be? Some of his peers looked at him in confusion. 2. A girl muttered, but I had 7? There were calls on both sides of the argument, until they realized that they had just had different numbers, and they looked confused at the boy. Izuku blushed and scuffed his heel while grinning. It was a logical ruse. We were actually testing how having too much information impacts your decision-making skills. People who only had 2 numbers didn't have as much to focus on, so they were far more likely to pick the fruit, the healthy option, but people who had to think about 7 numbers were too distracted and often went with their gut, which was cake, since everyone likes cake. The students looked at each other and down at what they were eating. He's right, I should have picked the fruit, but I was too busy thinking about the numbers. There were murmurs of agreement, and Aizawa raised an eyebrow beside him. A logical ruse, huh? Nedzu chuckled. It was a clever recreation of a previous experiment, and I must say it went rather well, don't you think? Izuku, what lesson can we take from this? If you distract people with too many options, they won't make good decisions. The class sweat dropped at the bright smile on his face when he said it, but Nedzu just patted his shoulder. Quite right. Now, let us go back to the lesson. I would like to teach you about priming before you have to leave for the day. Yes, Nedzu-sensei. Aizawa and his students watched the 2 leave, and the teacher sighed. God, this is going to be a nightmare. His students silently agreed. Uraraka Ochako was nervous. She was 8 and going to a new school. Her parents were a little worried about moving to the Mustafa area, but with the heroes everywhere they'd be getting more work, so they were willing to make the sacrifice. Plus, The district was safe and had reportedly good schools. She let herself enter the classroom, walking in front of the board as the teacher introduced her. She wasn't used to there being this many people in one class, let alone an area in general, but she was slowly starting to get used to it and not be overwhelmed. Class, this is Uraraka Ochako, she just moved here. Uraraka, why don't you tell us about yourself? She stumbled through her introduction, telling them where she was from and how her parents were construction workers, before an angry blonde boy in the back of the room loudly called out, "What's your quirk?" The teacher scolded him for speaking out of turn. His name was apparently Bakugo, but he just rolled his eyes. So? What is it? She tapped her index fingers to her thumbs and then held her hands out, showing the pink finger pads. Anything I touch with 5 fingers will float. It's called zero gravity. Some of the class ooed and ahed, but the boy, Bakugo, just sneered and sat back in his seat. She felt a twinge of annoyance go through her. Just who did he think he was? She narrowed her eyes at him and smiled brightly. And I'm gonna be a hero. Now that got a reaction out of him. She giggled as he exploded, quite literally, and the teacher reprimanded him again. No way. I'm gonna be the only person in this school to be a hero. She rolled her eyes, still smiling. Well, we'll see about that. Explodey. She trounced to her seat, which happened to be right in front of the boy, who had stilled and blinked at the nickname before scowling and turning away. Whatever, round cheeks. She grinned. Yeah, this was the start of something new. Katsuki didn't know how he felt about round cheeks, but she was sitting in Deku's spot, which meant Deku wasn't coming back. He huffed. Maybe the nerd had finally given up on being a hero. But something didn't sit right with him. Even if he had quit wanting to be a hero, that wouldn't mean he'd drop out of school. Did something happen to him? No, Auntie would have told the old hag, who would have told him, so he would have known if the nerd had done something stupid. He would be told if anything had happened, especially if it was serious, right? He slammed open the door and ignored the yell from his mom. Oi, hag, where the hell is Deku? Oh, Izuku? Didn't I tell you he's getting homeschooled now? He scrunched up his brow. Homeschooled? But Auntie works and isn't a teacher. Oh yeah, apparently he has a private tutor. Inko was really happy about it. They took an interest in our little Izuku and now he's having a lot of fun, last I heard. Fun? Private tutor? The nerd was trying to get ahead. And as if Deku could catch someone's eye with his shitty creepy notebooks and god-awful muttering, so something clearly wasn't right here. Katsuki was missing something, he just didn't know what, but by all might he was going to figure it out. Izuku woke up one morning to an email from Nedzu. Dear Izuku, I am rather busy today with some nonsense from the commission, so for your lesson today read the following articles and case studies, watching any attached videos. I should be free around our old playtime if you would like to play Terraforming Mars. Smiley face. Signing his email with a smile was certainly unconventional, but it did seem in line with Nedzu's personality, so Izuku just smiled back, to himself, and went to click on the first link. Ah, so that's what he was learning about today. This should be interesting. He took a lot of notes, and was a little daunted by the small text on the last link, so since it was past lunchtime anyway, he figured he'd take a break, eat something, maybe play outside to stretch his legs and get some sunshine. Plus, his mom was still out. I love you Izuku, make sure you eat. And don't spend all day on your computer. And he was hungry, so best to relax for a bit. He only had one more article, a scholarly one at that, and he felt like he had a pretty good grasp on the 3 techniques of compliance. He got to learn so many cool things with Nedzu. All the psychology and neuroscience things were so interesting, way cooler than the regular math and English and literature he usually did in school. He made himself a simple sandwich, not wanting to bother with cooking quite yet, and sat by a window to eat it, opening it and letting the fresh air wash over him. When he was done eating, he sat in front of the window for a bit more, just breathing in the air, until he was suddenly overtaken by a feeling of not enough and a desire to do more. That sent him running for the door, pulling on his red shoes before locking it behind him, slipping the key back in its hiding spot, taped to the side of the door, the side away from the stairs. He bounded down the stairs, gleefully running to the park across the street with a giggle. No one else was out at this time, regular school still in session for quite a while by his estimates, so he definitely had the park all to himself from other children, except the really young ones who didn't go to school yet. Any of his neighbors had already been told by a gushing Inko that he was getting homeschooled, so no one questioned why he was out and not in school, simply sending him smiles and going back to their jogging, minding kids, reading, or whatever else it was they were doing in the park on this genuinely beautiful day. It was his favorite type of weather, he thought as he ran around, climbing trees and sliding down the slide, with the warm glow of the sun and a gentle breeze. It was the perfect temperature for being outside, and Izuku was loving it. After who knows how long, he flopped onto the grass to watch the puffy white clouds drift by. He was so relaxed he didn't even notice when he slept into an easy sleep. It really was the perfect day. He woke with a start, body instantly rigid and heart pounding for reasons unknown. What had woken him up in such a state? He didn't remember any dreams. He thought to the pop of explosions, that was why. He scrambled to his feet as the blonde approached with a brown-haired girl chasing after him, looking a little mad, but Kaken ignored her completely. School must have let out while he was napping. He had really wanted to avoid Kaken if at all possible. Shitty Deku. Where the f have you been? He winced at the swears coming out of an 8-year-old's mouth. In general, or? Kaken stopped a few feet from him, popping off explosions threateningly. The hag says you're homeschooled now, some private tutor or some sheet, but we both know that's bullshit. No way someone is useless like you caught the eye of a private tutor. Just then, the girl caught up. Oh my god, Explodey, learn to chill. She stood straighter and the annoyance slipped off her face as she turned to Izuku with a bright smile. Hi there. I'm Uraraka Ochako, what's your name? Kaken clicked his tongue. Round cheeks, we're having a conversation. She rolled her eyes. Yeah, and I want to be introduced to the green kid, now can you butt out? She turned back to Izuku, smiling expectantly. He opened his mouth to reply but Kaken sneered. Didn't you hear me? This is Deku. He's quirkless. He wilted, looking away from the girl. Oh neat, don't see many of those. Nice to meet you, Deku. Izuku blinked, startled, but saw no malice on her face, just a toothy grin. She was missing one of her 2 front teeth, he noted idly. Kaken rolled his eyes. Whatever, you've been introduced, back to the important conversation. Why the f aren't you in school? Round cheeks took your spot so I know you're not coming back. He blinked at Uraraka. She had taken his spot? Oh, she must be new then. A transfer? Living in a new place can always be hard. He hoped she was adjusting well. He cleared his throat, knowing Kaken wouldn't like to be kept waiting. No, that's right. I'm being homeschooled. By effing who? Izuku was reluctant to tell the truth. Sure, it was the truth, and it was a really cool truth at that, but the chances of him being believed were slim and Kaken didn't like it when he thought Izuku was lying and then he'd come home with burns and bruises. Kaken, how many times do I have to tell you, don't if call me that? He blinked. Then what should I call you? Kaken stopped and scowled, thinking. Izuku pressed on. Should I call you Katsuki, since we've known each other for so long? Or maybe Bakugo, since you don't like me? Kaken grimaced. Do not call me Bakugo, God, it sounds weird hearing that in your whiny voice. So, Katsuki then? He grimaced more. No, that also sounds wrong. F-. He clenched his teeth, clearly lost in thought, before sighing and scowling. F-. Fine, just call me Kaken, you useless nerd. Izuku blinked in surprise. Are you sure? Yes. I wouldn't have said it if I wasn't. Kaken. The blonde didn't explode like he usually did, and Izuku relaxed minutely. Wow, the girl chuckled. You really tamed the beast, huh? He wants you to call him by that cutesy nickname. I didn't want sheet. I've just heard it for so long anything else sounds wrong. Shut the f up, round cheeks. She merely giggled and danced out of the way of his explosions, leaving Izuku staring in awe. She was so confident. If anyone had tamed the beast, it definitely wasn't Izuku. He blinked. Wait, what time was it? How long ago did school let out? Uraraka turned back, ducking under a swipe. Not too long, maybe 5 minutes ago? We came right here. Why? He blanched. Oh no, I'm going to be late. It was nice meeting you, Uraraka. She giggled. You too, Deku. Maybe we can play outside again another time. Kaken growled and yelled, but Izuku was already running. She seemed nice. He was, in fact, a little bit late, but when he told Nedzu about what had happened at the park and possibly making a friend, he was more than understanding. Redacted. I see today's lesson is already sticking. Green bean. What do you mean? Redacted. Ah, did you not know? Redacted. You used the door in the face technique. Redacted. You presented him with undesirable options until he had no choice but to accept the nickname he had previously despised. Redacted. It wasn't a perfect representation, of course, but it was masterfully done. Redacted. He did end up complying, did he not? Green bean. Oh, I guess you're right. Green bean. Oh. Also, I'm sorry, but I haven't read the last link yet. I took a break and ended up napping outside before Kaken found me. Redacted. Quite all right. That was merely a comparison essay with some experiments detailed within. Redacted. As long as you understand the topic, I see no reason why you would have to read it. Redacted. Besides, it is very small text and not very interesting besides, smiley face. Green bean. Are you sure? Redacted. Quite. Now, I must apologize for this, but I'm afraid several of your plants are about to burn up. Green bean. No, not the asteroid, sad face. Green bean. I will have my revenge. Redacted. I'm looking forward to it, smiley face. The next week wasn't as eventful as that one day in the park. The weather was still nice, so he did spend his lunch breaks there, but he was careful not to linger too long, not wanting to get caught by Kaken, or even Uraraka, no matter how nice she had seemed. He was at the store with his mother on Saturday, a day they both had off, except for scheduled gaming time of course, so they liked to shop together, getting in all the time together that they could. Their relationship had greatly improved since Izuku had started working with Nedzu a few weeks ago. She had always treated him a little like a porcelain doll, but now, with his new confidence, she was finally treating him more like just another little boy. He was capable, and she knew that now, it had been practically shoved in her face with the actual principle of UA, the smartest mammal in the area, coming and proclaiming it. Plus, she no longer had to worry about him getting bullied at school, since he was getting tutored on UA grounds, and there was no way Nedzu was going to let anything happen to his student. It would probably be grounds for instant expulsion, what with how fond he was of the boy. Still, the weekly grocery runs were something they both looked forward to, a nice way to conclude an otherwise busy week of work and school. She hummed to herself, maybe we should buy a watermelon? Actually, he perked up, that's probably the priming talking. I noticed a sign for watermelon at the front of the store, so it was recently in your mind. Did you have watermelon on the list? She blinked, checking the paper before chuckling and ruffling his hair. No, we don't. But still, even if I'm being primed, tomorrow is supposed to be really warm, perfect for a watermelon treat. What do you say, Izuku? He tilted his head, looking very serious as he considered, and his mother couldn't help but laugh quietly to herself. He came to a decision and smiled brightly at her. Okay. Oh hey. It's Deku. His head shot up with a slight flinch, but the voice was feminine, so he was able to relax. He took in pink cheeks and brown hair before he smiled and waved. Shyly. Hi, Uraraka. A man and a woman came up behind the beaming girl and the man chortled heartily. Ochako, is this your new friend? The loud explosive one. She snorted. No way. This is Deku. I met him in the park the other day. But he is friends with Explodey, I think. Inko blinked and broke into a smile herself. Izuku, is this the girl you were telling me about? Oh, she cooed, and he could feel himself getting red. He was talking so much about how cool she was, handling Katsuki the way she did. The Urarakas, was it? The woman smiled genially, extending a hand to shake. Hello, yes, we're the Urarakas. Our daughter, Ochako, recently joined the local elementary school. Are they classmates? Oh no, Inko shook her head. He's homeschooled. He was in the park the other day when school let out, and that's how they met. I'm Midoriya Inko, it's nice to meet you. As the adults talked, Uraraka came up to him with a frown. Is your name not really Deku? She whispered, because I noticed your mom called you Izuku. Why he squeaked out, it's another reading of my name, it means useless. Kaken came up with it, he trailed off, looking away embarrassed. Her face puffed up in indignation. Now that's just mean. Sorry for calling you that earlier then, I didn't know what it meant. No, he shook his hands rapidly, it's not your fault. I didn't officially introduce myself the other day, even though you're totally new to the area and just moved here. She pet her head. Oh, how'd you guess? I didn't think it came up. Crap, that's right, she hadn't. Oh, his heart was beating rapidly in his nervousness. I just guessed? School only started recently, sure, but Kaken said you took my spot, so you were either a transfer from another class or you had just moved here. I figured that Aldera is a pretty small school, and if you hadn't already heard of me or Kaken, it was probably the latter. She blinked, then smiled again. Oh yeah, that makes sense. You're pretty smart, Midori. He flushed at the nickname and she looked panicked. Oh, sorry, I just didn't know what to call you. Midoriya is weird because your mom is here, and I'm not gonna call you Deku. Plus, I don't think we're familiar enough for me to call you Izuku, you know? He nodded in starts, still trying to comprehend that a girl and his maybe friend had given him a nickname, one that wasn't even hurtful. Plus, she giggled, you are rather green. That drew the adults back into the conversation, all of them laughing. Inko put a hand to her face, smiling at him. Yes, I'm afraid Izuku got my coloration in all respects, but he did get his father's curls, so I don't have quite a carbon copy. Uraraka's mom laughed. You do look remarkably similar, no one will doubt he's your son, Inko. The short woman hemmed and hawed for a moment before her face brightened. Oh, you folks just moved in, right? Why don't you come over for dinner? Tomorrow, I would love to get to know you, impart my wisdom of the area. Plus, Izuku would no doubt love to have Ochako over, isn't that right, son? He blinked, glancing at the girl. Then he beamed. Yeah. That is, if you want to? Uraraka bounded back to her parents with wide eyes. Please? Explodey probably isn't going to invite me over anytime soon, and I have no other friends yet. They quickly agreed, chuckling all around, before Inko gave them the address and the time and they all peeled off to do their own shopping. Izuku, his mom said as they approached the produce section, let's pick up 2 watermelons. He sighed good-naturedly and put 2 watermelons in the cart. Drawn in by the priming mom. She just laughed, and he couldn't help but giggle too. Nedzu was nervous, Izuku could tell. Well, it wasn't really nerves. It was more like... It was hard to tell. If Izuku had to put a label on it, it was a mix of flustered, angry, annoyed, upset, and a little bit of exasperation thrown in for good measure. No one else would probably be able to tell, but Izuku had been having lessons with Nedzu for almost 2 months now, and he had a pretty good handle on the various emotions of his friend. Plus, Nedzu had wanted him to focus on observation, now that he had a lot of manipulation tactics and psychology tricks down, so he would be able to accurately figure out which ones would work best. Because of that, he had really gotten much better at reading people, including Nedzu. He just didn't know why Nedzu was feeling all those things, but, well, if you want to know something, you can either do some digging or be direct. Nedzu? Yes, Izuku? Why are you upset? The principal blinked before smiling. Forgive me, I didn't mean to have it interfere with our lessons. No, it's not. He shook his head. I was just concerned is all. Nedzu blinked. Concerned? For me? He shifted, suddenly nervous. Well, why, you are usually pretty cool, not to say that when you're upset you aren't cool. I meant, like calm and collected? In control, I guess. But recently, Nedzu hummed. There has been a case with the commission and one of our top heroes that needs to be kept under wraps. Oh, he blinked rapidly. Of course I won't pry. Oh no, Nedzu chuckled. That's not what has me irritated, not in the slightest. I understand completely why they want to keep such a thing hidden, but, he pet his head, examining Izuku, before he seemed to come to a decision. Well, maybe you can see for yourself. Okay, all cards on the table. This was not what Izuku was expecting, honest. Someone injured? Sure, they were headed to a hospital anyway. A hero injured? It made sense, something the commission would want to keep under wraps, especially if it was bad. Plus, they headed to the hero ward, so he wasn't shocked to see a hero. No, it was the #1 hero who was injured. In retrospect, a fun word he had learned. Recently, it made even more sense that the commission would want to cover this up. All Might, symbol of peace, severely injured in a villain fight? Yeah, people would probably freak out, like it was the end of days or something. Crime would probably hike up, people would become petty criminals, there might even be something like looting in the streets, and that was with All Might winning. In fact, they didn't even make it to the room. All Might was busy using the wall to get himself to walk down the hallway and out of his hospital bed, while Sir Knight I pleaded with him to go back to bed. Izuku was so shocked he actually stopped, making Nedzu tug at his hand where he held it, not expecting the stop. He didn't stop the boy when his hand slipped out and he rushed forward, both mad and concerned. Hey, you're really hurt. Get back in bed. The two pros blinked at Izuku, not quite seeing Nedzu yet, before All Might spoke up. I can assure you, young man, I'm perfectly dash. Tashinori, stop, even a child can see how injured you are. At this rate, you'll finish what that man started. All Might huffed. Mirai, I can't just stop being a hero. The world needs me. Izuku folded his arms, annoyed at being ignored. The world can need you when you're fully healed, now get back in bed. Or do I need to call a doctor? The symbol of peace paled, and wasn't that a sight, and sputtered. Young man dash. Izuku. Young Izuku, I will be just fine, there is nothing the hospital can do to help me dash. Why not? He blinked, looking down at this 8-year-old green child who was stubbornly crossing his arms and glaring at him, Yagi Tashinori, the #1 hero. Well, he started, speaking as one would to a much younger child than Izuku, I got really hurt, but most of the hurt ended up taking out some of my insides. That's not something hospitals can just fix. What about prosthetics? I don't know if I can get a prosthetic lung. Izuku shrugged. In the age of quirks, I've seen weirder things. Cloning definitely exists, so someone, somewhere, could probably build you a new one. Well, yes, I suppose dash. But if you want that to work you need to be ready and fit as you can be, so you need to go to bed. Gently pushing against him, carefully avoiding the bandages that were spotted with pink from no doubt open stitches, Izuku herded a bewildered All Might back into his hospital room, Sir Night Eye trailing behind relieved and amused in equal measure. Nedzu crept in behind on silent feet, watching his student and friend bully the symbol of peace into resting. When All Might noticed him, he did a double take and his eyes went comically wide. Nedzu, when did you get here? Oh, the mammal mused, since Izuku has been. We came together after all. Night Eye looked at the boy in a new light. This is the student I've heard rumors of? Nedzu's eyes sparkled. Pray tell, who did you hear those rumors from? The tall man scoffed. No. I'm not telling, I imagine you'd rather figure it out on your own. Oh ho, he chortled, quite so. But yes, this is Midoriya Izuku, my personal student and friend. Both heroes blinked at that. It wasn't often Nedzu called someone, least of all a human, his friend. Said friend was still glaring at All Might, or more the sheets he was fiddling with, and carefully rearranging the bed to try and make him more comfortable, and thus, more likely to stay in bed. Young Izuku. He held up a hand to stop the hero. No, unless it's an apology for recklessly and pointlessly reopening your no doubt terrible wounds, I don't want to hear it. Honestly, what were you thinking? You thought you could save people in this state? His anger turned to sadness and he sniffed, eyes watering. How can you save everyone with a smile if you make your friends worry? Sir Night Eye nodded. Tashinori, please, we just want you to stay safe. Izuku looked into All Might's blue eyes, trying to morph his expression into one of determination instead of misery. How can you save anyone if you don't even save yourself? Yagi Tashinori, symbol of peace, number 1 hero, all might, and 8th successor of one for all, broke right then and there. And then again when Chio came and hit him for getting out of bed. Not 5 minutes later, Izuku was all smiles, though his eyes were still a little red and he did sniff occasionally, while he jabbered on to the bedridden all might about physical therapy, food that was light on your stomach and still good for you, bedtime stories that never failed to help Izuku sleep, and so on, everything and nothing. Sir Night Eye pulled Nedzu aside, speaking quietly. What on earth possessed you to bring a child here? Nedzu smiled. I'm not sure what you mean, we just happened to be in the ward when he saw a clearly injured person trying to resist medical help. Don't try it, Nedzu, you brought him here on purpose? He hummed, looking at the sparkle in Izuku's eyes. I did, you are correct. Izuku noticed my change in mood and wanted to know what was causing it. Night Eye raised an eyebrow. So why bring him? Why not just say someone got in an accident? Oh, but I did. However, that wasn't what irritated me. It was the fact that Yagi was making poor decisions and was not willing to listen to reason. That doesn't answer the question. Why did you bring the boy here? Nedzu gestured to the pair. What do you think? He is very good at what he does, no? And I don't even think he knew what he was doing, isn't it wonderful? Night Eye paused before frowning. You brought him to manipulate Tashinori into actually getting rest? Oh yes. If he starts acting up again, I'm sure we can stop by. Izuku would no doubt love to make sure he is taking all the suggestions to heart. The boy has done plenty of research on the human body. Mostly the psyche, you understand, but biology is important too. How old is he? He's 8. And he got an accurate read on your emotions? We spend a lot of time together, but yes, he did get much better at observation faster than I could have possibly hoped. Night Eye nodded, contemplative. He's a good child. Indeed. Coming from you, who hates children, that is a high compliment. Night Eye rolled his eyes. Coming from you, who hates most humans, it is also a compliment to call him your friend. Nedzu quieted down, smile fading to a more normal, softer expression. Yes, I suppose it is. After making the bedridden hero promise to stay bedridden, the two left again, heading back to UA in much brighter spirits. Izuku, Nedzu said as they walked through the gates, would you like to play a game today? Izuku perked up. What game? Ah, there's a game called Insider. It's a bit like 20 questions or person, place, or thing, but there is one person who secretly knows what the word is as well. Are you interested? Another game of secrets? Of course, count him in. Yes, please. Excellent, I'll just gather some of the staff then. Shall we see who's free? They walked into the staff room and Midnight paled at the sight of them both. Aizawa sighed and buried his face deeper in his capture scarf. Ectoplasm looked resigned, and Present Mike looked delighted. Hey there, listener. You must be Izuku. Surprised I haven't seen you yet, since you've been here so long. I'm Present Mike, but you can call me Yamada. Izuku nodded, eyes sparkling. I really like your radio show. Why, put your hands up for a high five, little listener. Izuku giggled and obliged, high-fiving the voice hero. Anyway, what's up, Nedzu? We're here to play a game and we're wondering if you'd like to join us. Aizawa and Ectoplasm, frequent victims, just sighed and went to sit at the table, already resigned to their fate. Midnight was a little more nervous, especially seeing the reaction of the other two, but Yamada looked thrilled. Sure thing, what are we playing? Nedzu hopped up into a seat, Izuku beside him, and slid a small red box with an eye decal on it onto the table. Tell me, you all have played 20 questions or person, place, or thing before, correct? There were nods all around. Excellent. This game is not much different, just a little more nuanced. These tokens, and he slid out 6 rectangles with a black and white design on the back, represent our roles. There is the Master, the Commoners, and of course, the Insider, hence the name of the game. The only other thing in this box you'll see is this deck of cards. On one side is a number, 1 through 6, and on the other, 6 numbered nouns. When the roles are passed out, the Master will reveal themselves, everyone else staying quiet about who or what they are. Everyone closes their eyes, The master flips a card over to reveal a new number and a list of words. The number on the back of the next card is which word on the card you flipped that everyone will have to guess. Once the master knows it, they close their eyes as well and call for the insider to open their eyes as well. The insider has a few moments to acquaint themselves with the word before the master will tell them to close their eyes again and will flip the card back over, so that no one can see. Everyone will open their eyes, a timer of 5 minutes will start, and we will go around the circle asking the master yes or no questions to try and determine what the object is. The insider wants the group to guess it, but does not want to be discovered, so they must be careful about asking questions that are too pointed. Does anyone have any questions? Aizawa sighed. When are we allowed to guess? Does that count as a question? Yes, it is generally counted as a question, but at 2 minutes remaining it is considered a free-for-all and anyone can ask questions completely out of order. Izuku nodded. What if the answer to a question is maybe? Nedzu's whiskers twitched. Up to the discretion of the master, I suppose. In general, stick to one side. If one maybe is a no, then all maybes should also be no. Midnight slapped her hands on the table, looking excited. This sounds fun, let's play. Nedzu spread the tokens in the center of the table, allowing everyone to pick them before him, going last, and Aizawa flipped his up. I'm the master. Nedzu flipped over a tiny hourglass and indicated to Izuku. You are to his left. You ask the first question. He nodded. Is it alive? No. Nedzu went next. Is it a place? Yes. Midnight put her chin in her hand. Is it kid-friendly? She purred. Aizawa looked at her, deadpan. Yes. Ectoplasm nodded. Is it well known? Yes. Present Mike tapped his fingers on the table. Oh, I know. Is it the park? No, why are you guessing this early? Phooey. Izuku swallowed. His turn again. Is it an amusement park? Aizawa sighed, turning his dead gaze to him. It can be. Midnight perked up. Whoa, is that allowed? That wasn't a yes or a no. Nedzu smiled. Perfectly so. Is it open for 7 to 10 hours? Yes. Midnight huffed. Is there an age limit? No. Ectoplasm clicked his teeth in thought. Is it a water park? No. Is it an ice cream parlor? Mike asked questions, not guesses, and no. Is it, oh wait, does this place serve food? Aizawa sighed at Izuku's question, though it was more relieved. Yes. Nedzu hummed. Does this place have multiple stores? Yes. Does it sell adult things? I hate you, there is literally an 8-year-old here. Also yes. Midnight trying to hold back her laughter, but she couldn't help it and some snorts escaped. Ectoplasm pondered. I feel like we're close. Oh, does it usually have one big clothes store? Nedzu piped up, unable to help himself. Is it a mall? Aizawa sighed. Are you sure it was in the free-for-all section, Nedzu? But yes, the word was mall. Oh yes. Forgive me, Ectoplasm, I couldn't help myself. Ectoplasm shrugged. I was getting there, but it's no big deal. Now, Nedzu clapped his hands together, comes the fun part. First, since I guessed the word, do you all think I am the insider? And Aizawa gets to guess as well, of course, since he doesn't know the identity either. Yamada hummed. I dunno, you asked some pretty pointed questions. He was the one who guessed it was a place, and that it had multiple stores. Midnight sighed. Yeah, but he's also Nedzu. I think it's Ecto or Izuku. He blinked. Why me? Just the vibes, you know? Nedzu chuckled. Well, it's time to vote on whether or not I am the insider. Hands out, make a thumbs up or a thumbs down on the count of 3. On 3, most thumbs were pointed down, with the exception of Aizawa, who was looking at the principal with narrowed eyes. Nedzu chortled. Well, I was not the insider, so you were correct in this matter, most of you. Now, we have to guess who we think the insider actually is. If we guess incorrectly, the insider wins and everyone else loses. I believe we have discussed our thoughts enough. On the count of 3, point to who you think it is. Midnight pointed at Izuku, Yamada pointed at Ectoplasm, and everyone else pointed at Yamada. He pouted. What? No way, I was way off base all the time. Yes, Aizawa drawled, which is suspicious. Well, Nedzu said with glee, were you the insider? Yamada flipped up his token, revealing he was a commoner. Nope. Nedzu blinked. How curious, who was it? Midnight grinned. Me. I didn't have to do much. Nedzu asked most of the hard questions. But show Yuta, what mall is also an amusement park? The big ones, like Mall of America. I don't know, I don't like to go to malls. Too many people. Midnight rolled her eyes and bounced excitedly. Okay, are we playing again? Nedzu took up the 6 tokens and shuffled them, Aizawa and Midnight picking last. Aizawa flipped up the master token again. Midnight and Yamada groaned. There's no way that's fair. Midnight nodded, slamming her hands into the table. This is rigged. I picked last, don't be ridiculous. Nedzu chuckled. Very well, time to close our eyes so the master can see the word. Izuku closed his eyes, a little bummed he wasn't anything special this round either, but he was having fun, so there was that. Now the master closes their eyes and the insider opens theirs. After another moment, everyone opened their eyes, the card carefully tucked under Aizawa's token, and Nedzu flipped the timer again. Izuku, you start again. He gulped. Well, tried and true. Is it alive? Aizawa actually grimaced. No. Seemingly in the same vein of thinking, Nedzu asked, is it a place? No. Is it? Midnight paused for dramatic effect. Robotic? Aizawa sighed. No. Can you eat it? No. Yamada grinned. Can it cause harm? Zashi, everything can cause harm if used incorrectly enough. Yeah, I meant if used correctly, is it usually used to harm people? No. Izuku bit his lip. Is it an object? Yes, finally a good question. Is it consumable? No. Midnight leaned forward. Is it thick with 3 C's? Aizawa took a deep sigh, looking like he longed to be anywhere else. No. Ectoplasm had taken to ignoring Midnight, it seemed, because he wasn't fazed in the slightest. Can you hold it easily? Yes. Yamada went next. Is it bigger than an average house cat? Yes, generally. Back to Izuku. Is it a toy? No. Nedzu smiled. Can it be used for daily needs? Yes. Is it a blanket? No. Is it a purse? 1. Bigger than an average house cat. 2. Stop guessing things, ectoplasm. I expected better. Is it a bed? Zashi, what did I just say? And no. Is it something on a bed? No. Nedzu hummed again. We've passed the 2-minute warning if you all would simply like to ask questions. Is it a phone? Namuri, I swear to God I will kick your butt into next week if you guess another thing without getting more information. Fine, can I use it to restrain someone? Nedzu, remind me why you let her in this game? Sho, answer the question. You know what? Yes. Midnight blinked and broke into a grin. Really? Awesome. Yamada sat up straight. Is it kept in a specific place? Yes. Is it made of metal? No, Izuku, it's not. Nedzu raised a paw. Can things be stored in this item? Aizawa narrowed his eyes. Yes. Midnight and Yamada did a rapid-fire guessing round. Cardboard box. Backpack. Briefcase. They kept firing off various containers, only for all of them to be shot down. Zashi, I swear, a wallet is smaller than a cat. Not a kitten. Kill me now. Wait, Izuku muttered. Can it be made of different materials? Aizawa grinned. Yes, it can. Can it be rectangular in shape? Yes. Midnight chewed her lip before shooting up. Oh, is it a basket? Aizawa ran a hand through his hair. Yes, God, finally. Nedzu clapped his hands in delight. Lovely. Now we have to ask if Midnight is in fact our insider, since she was the one to guess it. She frowned. But I was the insider last time? And I was the master, and yet. But no, I don't think it's her, or she's really bad at her job. Izuku nodded. I don't think she's the insider either. Ectoplasm and Nedzu also shook their heads. At the vote, Everyone voted no. Nemuri, were you the insider? She flipped up her token. Nope, not this time. I think it was Hizashi. The man gasped in shock. Again? What did I do to deserve this? I can't believe you. Nedzu's snout twitched in amusement. Personally, I believe it to be Izuku. His eyes widened. What? Why? You were the one who asked the 2 questions that lead Midnight to guessing correctly. It seems logical to me. Yamada folded his arms. I think it was Ecto. Nah, it probably is Yamada this time. They voted, Yamada getting most of the votes, with Nedzu voting for Izuku and Yamada himself voting for ectoplasm. Alas, he bemoaned, falling back with his hand to his forehead, 'twas not I. I was merely a commoner. Midnight harumphed. No way. Then who was it? Ectoplasm raised a hand. It was me. Most of the table groaned, with the exception of Nedzu, who chuckled. Aizawa tossed his master token into the center of the table. I hope I don't get that again because all of you are hopeless. They dealt out the tokens one last time, and Izuku was delighted to see he was the master. He flipped it up with a grin. Excellent, Nedzu said, now we should all close our eyes. They went through the process again, and the card flipped up to reveal the word was wife. This should be good. Nedzu, to Izuku's left, started them off, eyes twinkling as he stole Izuku's usual starting question. Is it alive? Yes. Midnight hummed. Is this a live thing a person? Yes. Is it female? Yes. Yamada grinned. A mother? No. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. A sister? No. Is this person in the 5 foot to 5 feet 5 inches range? Izuku blinked. They can be? Midnight plopped her chin in her hand. Are they older than 10? Izuku paled. Yes. Ectoplasm nodded. Does she like teeth? They all turned to face the cloning hero. What? I mean like, does she collect teeth? No. Then not the tooth fairy. Yamada slammed his hands on the table. Is it a familial role? Yes. Aizawa nodded. Daughter? No. Niece? No. Parent? She can be. Midnight sighed dramatically and Ectoplasm took the next question. Is she in love? Izuku blushed. I hope so. Yamada perked up. Is she a bride? No. Midnight slammed her hands on the table. Is she a wife? Izuku blushed again and nodded. Yeah, the word was wife. Yamada grinned. That makes a lot of sense. I was really close with mother, but I guess not all mothers are wives and not all wives are mothers. Quite so, Nedzu hummed. Now, do we believe Midnight to be the insider? There was a chorus of no's, the vote revealing the same. Very well, Midnight. Nope, not me. I think that this time, it really is Hizashi. Yamada groaned. Nem, stop, it hasn't been me the past 2 times, no matter how much you thought it was. Give it a rest. Well, eventually, the woman crowed, I'm bound to be right. Izuku spoke up. I think it might be ectoplasm again. The tooth fairy thing might have been meant to throw us off. Aizawa scratched his chin. I don't know, the only people we know for sure it's not are Izuku and Nemuri. Other than that, everyone is fair game. After a bit more deliberation, they voted, 2 fingers pointing to ectoplasm, 3 fingers pointing to Yamada, and 1 finger pointing to Nedzu. Oh, his mentor asked, you suspect me, Izuku? He nodded hesitantly. Well, the majority went with Yamada, so I do believe it is time to reveal. Yamada flipped his token up, revealing a commoner for the 3rd time in a row, and the whole table groaned, except Nedzu who cackled, revealing he was the insider. Well, he stood up from the table, gathering the tokens and cards and hourglass back into the small box. Despite never successfully capturing the insider in all 3 rounds played, I rather enjoyed myself. Thank you for playing, my teachers, but now Izuku and I must go. Toodles. They walked out the room leaving confused teachers behind, and as soon as the door to Nedzu's office shut, Izuku burst out laughing. Toodles. Since when do you say Toodles? Nedzu chuffed lightly. Since I decided to confuse my subordinates. They certainly looked it, so I gather I succeeded. He giggled. Yeah, you did. They looked really shocked. Nedzu hummed in delight. Now, what would you like to do for the remainder of our time left? Izuku perked up. Can we play 6 again? I want to beat you again. Nedzu smiled coyly, clearing a space on his desk and drawing out a deck of cards. Bold words, Izuku. Can you live up to them? Izuku hummed, pretending to be in thought. I dunno, you might be right after all, you are Nedzu. Nedzu chuckled. And you, my friend, are Izuku. Now I will deal first. The next time Ochako saw Midori, after the fun dinner, was in the park again, on a Saturday. Explody was there too. Her eyes widened at the explosions coming from his palms and the green boy clearly running in fear, and she quickly whipped off her jacket, tying the arms together before running up to her classmate, wrapping it around him, and then floating him off the ground. Round cheeks, what the F dash? You lost ground privileges. Midori slowed to stop and blinked at her, taking in her quirk with wide eyes. He rushed up to her, and she blinked when he began to talk. Oh my gosh, is that your quirk? Touch-based? Some sort of gravity negation, it looks like, since he's floating and you had to tie something to him so he wouldn't float off. Explody twisted and writhed in the air to no avail, not even able to grab onto the jacket to lower himself down. Let me go, you beach. She frowned up at him. No way. You were trying to hurt Midori, and that's not cool. He sneered. Deku's fang useless. WG, would you defend him? Her eyes blazed in indignation. He's not useless just because he's quirkless, and if you're picking on him for that, then you're being a villain. Bakugo blinked at her. Midori blinked at her. She blinked back at them. Oh, and yeah, it's called zero gravity. You're really smart, Midori. He was shaken out of his stupor by her compliments, and he flushed, sputtering and shaking his hands, just like that day in the supermarket. She gave him a toothy grin and giggled. I'm not a villain. He was uncharacteristically quiet, but his eyes were blazing with determination. She raised her eyebrows in disbelief. If I let you down, will you attack Midori? No. She nodded once and handed the jacket off to Midori before tapping her fingers together. Release. Midori's eyes were sparkling as she untied her jacket from the more solemn blonde and shrugged it back on. He was bouncing up and down, sending not-so-subtle glances at her hands, and she extended them with a giggle. He went off on a mutter storm, and she couldn't hear a word he was saying as he traced her finger pads and squished her hand. He cut himself off sheepishly. Sorry, that was probably creepy. Nope. She shook her head. It was flattering you think something this simple is cool. He nodded, eyes sharp. You could be a great rescue hero if you wanted. You could negate the weight of debris or make it easier to carry an injured person, or if you can float yourself, you could use something like a jetpack or a grappling hook to have increased mobility and get places really fast. Heck, if you had Kaken, he could just blast you to where you needed to go. If he was weightless, he could fly through the air faster than before. He whirled to the quiet, explosive boy and immediately continued his assault. Kaken, you've been looking for aerial help, right? Uraraka could help you with that, since she could just make you like a kite and then you practice being in the air. Then maybe later, you won't need her, but that would probably be good quirk practice for her too. He trailed off, looking down and muttering to himself, and she giggled again, nudging the shell-shocked blonde. Pretty crazy how he went from terrified of you to offering you tips. He must think a lot of you. Her expression fell and steely determination took over. But if I find you hurting him again, I really will make you a kite, and then I might forget to let you down. Got it? Red eyes met her and the boy gulped, nodding. Got it, he managed to scratch out. She grinned again. Good. Now, Midori, you want to play with us on the playground? Green eyes met hers and the boy grinned. Yeah. The next day was their now weekly visit to All Might. Oh yes, Izuku had known immediately who it was upon seeing the man, injury or no. He was a big fan, and could probably pick the real All Might out of a crowd of lookalikes, no sweat. Did he freak out about bullying the symbol of peace a little? Yes, but only after the fact, and he was far more glad the #1 hero was going to be taking care of himself. He sat with the bedridden hero while Nedzu and Knight chatted about things, probably cases. He pet his head when there was a lull in conversation. I know the commission wants to keep the fight you had a secret, but I did some digging dash. Young Izuku, he flustered. Please, you are a young child, you shouldn't be looking into this. Izuku blinked at him, then continued. So, I did some digging and I got some accounts. Is it true the person you were facing had multiple quirks? All Might blustered, clearly not wanting to answer any of his questions, but after exchanging a tired glance with the other two heroes in the room and getting nothing more than unsympathetic glances and an eerie smile, he was getting no help from them, and Izuku just kept prodding. Yes, he did. That makes sense. Well, it doesn't, since people generally only have one quirk, but you're really strong, so it would take someone with multiple quirks to injure you this much. Was it all for one? He flinched. Where did you hear that name? Izuku shrugged. The internet. Like I said, I did some digging. He perked up, satisfied with the answers he had gotten, and grinned at Nedzu. We brought a game, didn't we? Nedzu smiled. We did. Knight, would you be willing to join us for a game? The foresight hero raised an eyebrow. I suppose. What is it? Nedzu's eyes twinkled. Izuku, you've played once before, would you like to explain? He grinned. Yes. He settled in next to All Might, sliding the cards out of the cloth bag and leaving the little tokens inside. He passed out an information card to each of the heroes who hadn't played before and then started lightly shuffling the deck. This game is called Love Letter. You're trying to get your love letter to the princess to win her favor, and you have various cards you can do them with. Looking at your information card, I'll go from the top down. The princess is the best and highest card in the game, at a worth of 9, but you can never play or discard her, or you're out and you automatically lose. Next is the countess, worth 8. Her special ability is that if you also have the king or one of the princes, you must discard her, but it doesn't make you lose, you just no longer have that high-value card. Next is the king. If you play him, you switch your hands with another player's. Next are the chancellors, and from here there are multiples of each card, 2 unless I say otherwise. The chancellor allows you to draw 2 cards from the deck, keep one, and put your remaining 2 cards on the bottom of the deck in any order you'd like. Next are the princes, and playing him will force another player, including yourself if need be, to discard their current hand and redraw. For those of us who are keeping track, the king is worth 7, the chancellor 6, and the prince 5. Next, at 4, is the handmaiden card. If you play her, until your next turn, any card that targets another player, like the king, the prince, or the others we haven't gone over yet, those cards cannot be played on you and must target someone else. At 3 is the baron. You play him and pick another player and the two of you compare cards. Whoever has the lower point value loses and is out of the game, and they must discard their hand. At 2 is the priest, and playing him lets you look at another person's hand. At 1 are the guards, and there are 6 of them. Playing them, you pick another player and guess what they have in their hand, with the exception of the guard. If you're right, they discard and are out. If you're wrong, nothing happens. Last, at 0 points, is the spy. There are 2 spy cards in the game, and if you are the only still active player alive at the end of the game with a spy, you get a favor token regardless of whether or not you won the princess's favor. Everyone starts with 1 card, and on their turn, draw another from the deck. There will also always be 1 card out of the game, so you don't totally know what's in and what isn't. Anyone have any questions? All Might blinked. So, we want to have the highest card discarded? Izuku shook his head. No, you want to have the highest card in hand. If you play or discard a high card, you should generally have a good reason for it, because whoever has the highest value at the end wins the favor of the princess. Sir Knight nodded. And, to clarify, if someone plays a spy and is later taken out, they do not count for the spy token? You have to be alive, so to speak. Nedzu smiled widely. Well then, since we all know what we're doing, let us begin. The first to 3 tokens wins. Playing a baron was always a risky move, Izuku knew, but when you had the countess, you really almost had no one that could beat you, and you didn't want to play her if you didn't have to, so Izuku felt confident when he used it on Sir Knight. They slid their cards across the bed to each other, careful not to let anything show, and they both looked blank-faced. They silently passed them back and Izuku flipped up the countess, eyes never leaving Night Eyes. "Oh ho ho," Nedzu chuckled, laying down a guard. "Night, you wouldn't happen to have the princess, the only card higher than the countess, would you?" Still staring at Izuku, dead silent, Night Eye revealed the card Izuku had already seen. Nedzu won that round. Izuku bit his lip, looking at the cards that had already been played. It was between him and Nedzu, and he had the last draw. The countess had already been played, taken out by having a prince in hand as well, much to All Might's dismay, so the only card that could beat him was the princess. One card was out of the game, but the two cards he didn't have, other than the baron he had drawn and was not keen on using, were the princess and a guard. He could use the baron if Nedzu had the guard, and then he would win. Then again, if Nedzu had the princess, he should use the king and swap their hands. There was only one right answer, but Izuku didn't know what it was. He didn't have a spy out, so he didn't gain anything from trying to preserve his life by risking the king, but Nedzu did. He had to take the risk. "I'm baroning you." "Are you sure, Izuku?" "Yes." Since they were the only two left, and it was the last play anyway, they both flipped up their cards. Izuku leapt to his feet, whooping, while Nedzu chuckled, handing over another favor token. "Well done, Izuku," he murmured. "Well done." He buzzed in anticipation while he drew his last card. All four of them were still in this round, but it had gotten very close. The two barons had both ended in a tie, meaning no one died, and no one had successfully been guarded. But Night Eye would be the last to draw and play, and everyone was nervous. Izuku especially, because he had the princess and the two spies besides, guaranteeing him a token if he lived. He looked at the card he drew and he grinned, plopping it down triumphantly. "Handmade." Night Eye cursed. They ended up playing many more rounds than just whoever got to 3 tokens first, probably a total of 5 games, and they all did fairly well. It was part luck, after all, even if being able to weigh options and probability was equally important. The sun was setting by the time they put the game away, and Izuku lingered behind a little bit, looking at the injured hero with wide eyes. "You've been keeping up with your physical therapy and diet, right?" All Might smiled. "Yes, I have, thank you. I'm feeling better already." Izuku doubted that, with the 2 missing organs, but whatever, if the adults wanted to sugarcoat things, by all means. When they were on the train, Nedzu plopped beside him, he hummed to himself. "What's on your mind, my friend?" "The person who injured him. I was wondering what gave rise to a person like that." Nedzu looked delighted. "And what are your thoughts?" Izuku hummed again, looking down at his hands. "I think there's a lot of focus on quirks now. Someone with a powerful quirk basically has life handed to them. If he really was all for one, the boogeyman who could take and give quirks, then I think he's today's society's worst nightmare. And to someone like me, or with a quirk they don't want," he looked out the window, squinting. "I think he'd be hope." Nedzu didn't respond, letting him gather his thoughts. "I don't think he'd do anything for free though. Even if he looks appealing on paper, there's no way someone like that would just give someone like me a quirk, or exchange quirks with someone who didn't like theirs. There would always be a cost." "Very insightful. How do you think we could get rid of him, if he were still a problem?" Izuku thought for a moment. "I think we could only really get rid of him if we took away his power. And I don't mean his quirk, I mean he preys on society. So we just have to change society." Nedzu smiled to himself. "Quite right, Izuku. Perhaps we can look at ways to change society tomorrow." Izuku grinned at his friend. "Yeah. This game," Nedzu explained to Izuku and Aizawa, "is called Deep Sea Adventure. There is another name that I like to call it, of course, but I do believe that manages to get the point across quite well." He opened the small blue box with a picture of a submarine on it. It was about the same size as the Insider box, perhaps made by the same company. He took out a black disc, fairly small, a cardboard submarine, 3 person-shaped pieces, and little tokens with numbers on one side. First he laid out the pale blue triangles that had a single dot on the back, then the slightly darker squares that had 2 dots, then the darker still pentagons with 3, and finally the midnight blue hexagons that had 4 dots on them, all in a line down below the submarine. As you can see, there are 4 levels of treasure, for that is what we are trying to get. You will roll the dice. Note they are numbered 1 to 3, so the most you can get is 6, and there are 8 of each type of treasure. The more dots on the back, the larger the range of points. The first set is under 4, the second 5 to 9, the third 8 to 14, and the last are 12 to 16. Very exciting. Aizawa frowned. There's overlap? Oh yes, and you don't know what you get until you get it all the way back to the submarine successfully. Izuku nodded. Why are there numbers on the submarine? Ah, that is the oxygen level. As soon as someone starts a turn with treasure in hand, we move down 1 oxygen for every piece of treasure. Here, let me explain the turns so you can better see how to get treasure. He took one of the person-shaped pieces and put it on the submarine. First comes oxygen, but since I haven't even left the submarine yet, I couldn't possibly have treasure. After that, I roll the dice. He did just that, getting a 2 and a 1, to make 3. He moved the person down 3. I have landed on a treasure. I can now choose whether or not I would like to pick it up. In this case, I have no reason to, so I will decline. At that point, my turn is over, since there is nothing more I can do. He arranged other pieces on the board, putting the other 2 people nearby. If the situation was like this and I rolled another 3, I would then make a choice. I could keep going down, or decide to turn back. Since I have no treasure, it seems foolish to return to the surface, but please note that once you turn back, you can only go up. Now, I rolled a 3 in this example, but someone is in my way. Fear not, no one can ever occupy the same space, so if you encounter another diver on your way, you simply jump over them. He moved his piece down, skipping the spaces that had the other players on them. Now, another thing that treasure is bad for is movement. If you have treasure when you move up, back to the submarine, you must subtract the amount from your roll. The treasure is heavy, you see, and drags you down. He swept the pieces back to the submarine. At the point of your turn where you would pick up treasure, you can also choose to drop treasure, in case things get too heavy for you. Izuku frowned at the submarine. What happens if the submarine runs out of oxygen and you're still out there? Nedzu grinned. That is where the game's other name comes in. If on your turn, you lower the oxygen to 0, you finish your turn and then everyone left in the ocean is forced to drop their treasure, in stacks of 3, to the bottom of the treasure line. Aizawa narrowed his eyes. And what is this other name? Why, the Everybody Dies game. Izuku thought that was a pretty good name, all things considered, because in the first round he tried to get back, but the dice were just not working for him, and his 2 treasure pieces sank to the bottom of the ocean. Apparently, stacked treasure at the bottom counted for 1 piece of treasure, so if you could get down there, it might be worth your while, but you had to get down there first. There were 3 dives to a game, and they ended up playing twice, thankfully, so Izuku was able to get a handle on it in time to not die quite as often. Still, ambitious plays were high risk, high reward, and if you could get back to the sub in time, you made a lot of points. Nedzu ended up winning the first game, Aizawa in second, and Izuku in last, but Izuku managed to pull out a come-behind win in the second game, which he felt very proud of. When Aizawa went back to teaching class, Nedzu and Izuku cleaned up the game and Nedzu struck up their usual post-game conversation. So, what did you learn? Izuku hummed. There are some things you need to sacrifice to get better things later. Also, you'll never get far if you don't take any risks. Nedzu chuckled. How interesting. Izuku liked to take walks when he wasn't with Nedzu. He had met Uraraka at the park after all, but mostly he liked being outside and people watching. It was something he had done more passively before, but now he actively sought to categorize people as part of his education. Analysis and observation were both skills he was keen to improve upon. That's probably why he noticed the otherwise really tall boy trying to make himself small. He watched for a while, trying to figure out what was wrong. The boy was tall, with silver hair, and wore a mask to cover his lower face. He had 3 sets of arms, connected with a fleshy web, and only the top 2 were actually hands, clutching his bag, while the other 4 were ears and eyes, watching and listening to his surroundings. He watched the boy tense as a group of school children around their age and in the same uniform as the boy rounded the corner. He tried to duck his head, but he was easily a foot taller than Izuku, so huge for an elementary school student, because the other kids were definitely elementary schoolers. The group of 4 spotted him and their leader sneered. Izuku began to frown, remembering the searing explosions, long fingers, and red wings. The leader had bright red hair, but otherwise no one had any visual indications of quirks. Oh, that person can change their skin color like a cuttlefish. That's neat. Oh, Shuji! The leader called out in a sing-song voice, and Izuku leapt up from his bench and walked over to the taller boy. Shuji! He smiled at the surprised boy and made sure he was really loud. I've been looking for you. Auntie will get worried if we don't make it back soon. Come on. He gently tugged on the boy's hand, the top one that was actually a hand, not sure of etiquette, and the taller boy let himself be led away. Izuku glanced behind them as they rounded a corner and saw the 4 bullies, because that's definitely what they were, look confused and irritated, but then they just walked off. As soon as they were officially out of sight, he released the other boy. I'm sorry to jump you like that, you just didn't look comfortable and they didn't look nice. The boy blinked, clearly confused, and one of the ears shifted to a mouth. How did you know my name? Izuku flushed. The redhead, the leader, he said it out loud. I happened to be paying attention. Sorry, I know we don't know each other, that must be weird. He frowned, then nodded, resolute, and smiled up at the silver-haired boy. But I'm Midoriya Izuku, so now we're even. Shuji Nezu. He grinned. Nice to meet you. Anyway, sorry again dash. How did you know I needed help? Izuku blinked and the grin fell from his face. He smiled sadly. Like recognizes like, I guess. Shuji said nothing for a moment, then sighed and stood a bit straighter. Thank you for helping me, I am sorry for the inconvenience. How can I repay you? Izuku giggled. It wasn't an inconvenience at all. And there's no need to repay me, I was just doing what I wanted. I should be thanking you for not finding me creepy. Shuji shook his head, pulling up the mask when it slipped a little. Still, you saved me from having to deal with them today. Can I buy you a snack? Izuku pouted. Clearly, this kid would not be deterred. He could try one of his psychology techniques, but convincing someone to not do something was a little harder than convincing them to do it. He could always threaten him, or run, or maybe just act crazy and creepy so the boy would want nothing to do with him, but that didn't seem genuine, and he seemed like a really nice kid. Someone Izuku would love to get to know more. Tell you what, you can buy me an ice cream as long as I can ask you about your quirk. Shuji looked alarmed. My quirk? Izuku nodded. Yeah, it's really cool. You can change the ends to whatever you want, right? Is it just eyes, ears, and mouths? How can you talk out of a mouth on the end of your arm? Does it also make vocal cords? If you were underwater, could you use a nose or a mouth to breathe even if your head was under the water? He blinked and backed off, realizing he had gotten too close and the boy was looking rather flustered. Sorry, I got excited. Shuji blinked, but took in the deflated boy scuffing his shoe on the sidewalk and smiled under his mask. Okay, let's go get ice cream, and I'll see about answering those questions. Apparently, Shuji was getting bullied for being a mutant, specifically for having a weird mouth. Izuku was incredibly excited to see said weird mouth, but knew that that was not something he would get at their first meeting. Shuji also got cookie and cream ice cream, which Izuku solemnly declared an acceptable flavor, but Shuji was not nearly as impressed with Izuku's. Pistachio. They use almond extract to flavor it, you know that, right? He huffed, taking another bite of the artificially green ice cream. I know, but it's still tasty. Plus, it's green. The only other green ice cream flavor is matcha, and that's what my mom eats. No thanks. Shuji chuckled. Matcha is a fine flavor, but it's good to know you are partial to green things in general, Midori. I suppose it comes with the name. Izuku narrowed his eyes. The first syllable of your given name means I, the second means elephant. Not sure where I'm going with this, but it's somewhere. Shuji snorted. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure where you're going with this either. He glanced at the clock on the wall and sighed, feeding ice cream into various arm mouths. Apparently a lot of the structures you need in a regular mouth got made too, so it pretty much functioned as normal, with some extra tubes running up the arms to move the food, water, or air, depending on what he needed, to the correct places. It was really cool and honestly a super sophisticated quirk. I have to go, my older sister is probably wondering where I am and I don't want her to tear apart the city looking for me. He stood up, then paused. Thank you again. Izuku smiled. You know, I'm in that park pretty often after school. Maybe we'll see each other again. He imagined the solemn, tall, bullied boy smiling under his mask. Yeah, maybe we will. Izuku watched him leave, waving, before he allowed himself to really and truly get angry. Shuji was really cool and really nice, and he was being bullied for something as dumb as his appearance? It was ridiculous, in this day and age of quirk, that mutant discrimination was still a thing, and among 8-year-olds no less. Izuku threw away his empty bowl and practically stalked back to his house, already thinking up how he was going to word this email to Nedzu. If I'm not in tomorrow, I'm sending a school and its bullies some thinly veiled threats and fighting mutant discrimination. Yeah, that would probably be fine, Nedzu would understand. He got in, said hello to his mother, and immediately went to his computer. He already had the name of the elementary school, having gotten it out of Shuji in their conversation, so he knew where to start looking. Luckily, it took almost no digging to find last year's yearbook, showing all the students. There was the chameleon kid, the other two goons that didn't have many defining features other than a horrible nose on one and greasy hair on the other, and there was the redhead. Now he had their names. He had set up a new email address after realizing he still had his childish one from when he was younger. Disregard that 8 is still young, he was more sophisticated now, and it was perfectly professional and also untraceable, so really, it was perfect for this task. And if he ended up sending the discrimination laws, links to therapists, and a step-by-step guide on the best way to dissolve a body, then he was just doing his best as a friend. Shuji was nice, and these people were not. It was simple, really. He also decided to send an email to Shuji, but then realized he hadn't gotten the other boy's email, and getting it from the internet or doing some digging like he had for the bullies was probably really creepy, and he had already been bad enough with the multitude of questions. Best not to push it. Plus, with any luck, he'd see him again tomorrow. It was always nice to make new friends. Meza wasn't sure what had happened, but almost overnight, Takashi and his cronies started avoiding him. Any time their eyes met, they would flinch and pale. Some tried to offer smiles and even tried being nice to him, which was incredibly strange to say the least, but at least they weren't pulling down his mask, calling him names, excluding him from everything, throwing things, and generally making his life hell. Meza considered it a win, even if he didn't understand how it had happened, or why. Maybe that Midoriya kid was a good luck charm. Maybe he'd see him again after school today. Meza would like that. Aizawa was a young teacher, with simple needs. Coffee, his terrible yellow sleeping bag Hisashi had bought him as a joke, his cats, and instilling the fear of God in his students. What he didn't need was Nedzu cackling in the teacher's lounge. Every once in a while, he would seemingly calm down and sip his tea with a chuckle, but then he would reread something and the laughter, if you could call it that, would come back full force. Aizawa was scared to ask, "Hey Nedzu." Hisashi had no such fear. Isn't the little listener usually here by now? Nedzu chortled. Oh, he's not coming in today. He has a personal project to attend to. He's making more friends, you see. Hisashi blinked, even as everyone else in the room tensed, sensing the clear threat. Oh, how nice. Good for him. Nedzu smiled. Indeed. I do love his tactics as well. Aizawa really didn't like that. Hisashi merely blinked again, then smiled and shot their boss a thumbs up. Neato. Welp, I have a class to teach. Tell the little listener I miss him and hope his friendship gathering goes well. Nedzu sipped his tea delicately and chuckled to himself. Oh yes, it shall go quite well. Yeah, not touching that with a 10-foot pole. He needed more coffee. Ochako was more than happy to welcome the new tall boy to their after-school play sessions. He introduced himself as Shuji Mezu, and he was a god at hide and seek. The ends of his extra arms could turn into ears and eyes, which let him find people way faster, and for someone so tall and big, he was really good at hiding and sneaking around too. She really thought he was a good addition to the group, even Explody acknowledged his skill. Plus, if he was getting mean, Shuji would help her float him into the sky, making him a very angry and explosive kite. The boy looked nervous and flinched at the anger, but Midori was quick to assure him that Kaken was getting better and that he was perfectly safe. Kaken didn't seem to agree, but he did quiet down when she told Shuji to just let him go if the explosive boy was bothering him. "Okay," she proclaimed, "I think we have an undisputed champion of hide and seek, so let's switch it up. Midori, what do you want to play?" "Heroes and villains." "Didn't ask you, Explody, you can pick next." "Midori." The green boy grinned. "I don't mind. Cheiko, will you be the villain?" She grinned at the nervous flush that overtook his cheeks, but honestly she loved the nickname, so she wasn't about to mention it. "Yeah. I'll float you, foul heroes." Explody cackled, making her think he would have made a better villain, but she already knew how he would get about that, so she merely ran after him, yelling out evil plans on the way. "I'm All Might. You'll never beat me, villain. And I'm Zero, the fearsome villain that will launch you into space." Midori giggled and grabbed Shuji's hand. "Come on, Webmaster, we have to help All Might." The solemn boy nodded. "Of course, Green Boy." Ochako couldn't help it, she snickered. These names were so silly, but at least they had all come up with new ones, unlike Explody. "All Might, huh? Didn't know you worked with other pros." Bakugo scoffed. "No way, these are sidekicks." Midori sighed. "Kaken, you and I both know that All Might has only ever had one sidekick, Sir Night-Eye. Whatever. What are we even fighting this villain on? Anyway?" "Oh, good point." She stopped. "I kind of just went off, didn't I? How about I'm robbing the bank?" The bank being the playground over there, the part with the slide. Midori nodded. "Sounds good. Now, Zero. We will stop you, us heroes 3. She giggled. "Not if I can escape down the slide." He gasped. "No. Webmaster, cut off her escape route. I'll help corner her, and All Might can take her out." She raced them to the playground, climbing up the rock wall and ducking for the slide. All clear for now. She started to slide down and suddenly she was wrapped in a web of flesh. She shrieked in joy and desperately tapped on Shuji. She felt him murmur in surprise and heard Midori on the outside. "No, Webmaster. All Might, get him down. I am here, round cheeks, to bring you down." Shuji huffed out a literally that she only heard due to her proximity, and she felt them slowly sink to the ground after Explody collided with them. With the other 2 heroes holding them down, she was forced to release Shuji's gravity. He readjusted his grip to make her face out, arms pinned to her sides, and she watched Bakugo and Midori grin at her. She could see how they grew up together. Their vicious grins were almost the same. "We've caught you, Zero. Time to give back what you stole." "Oh." She grinned. "Are you sure? What about my accomplice?" Explody scowled. "Accomplice? Who the f is your accomplice?" Catching on, Midori's eyes widened, and he grinned. "Oh, them. Right. Shuji, I can assure you, they are a much bigger threat. I can take care of Zero." Confused, Shuji released her, and she caught herself before grinning at Midori. He grabbed her hand, as if he was keeping her contained, and as soon as they were turned away, they took off running. "You fools. Green Boy is really the Green Menace. He was working with me all along." "And," he yelled back, "the bank is full of bombs. Better hurry before it blows and the civilian hostages die." Bakugo cursed and Shuji immediately took off running. Ochako and Midori looked at each other with a grin and let go of each other's hands, darting off in 2 different directions. "You can't catch us and save the hostages, heroes." Yeah, this was a fun game. Izuku was quite pleased with the results of his emails. The bullies hadn't replied, but the school had. "Who are you? How did you get this information? Why are you threatening us? We will see you in court." How cute. They thought they could find him? With an email Nedzu had helped him set up? No, not a chance. He sent back a smiley face. That was it. He forwarded the whole email chain to Nedzu, confident his friend would like to see his progress and would no doubt be able to give him better tips on what to do next. Izuku was having a lot more fun with this than he thought, and Shuji had looked so much better today than before. He had even gotten the boy's email and started sending him articles on other shape-shifting quirks, octopi, and things like neural plasticity. He was just so excited, and he wanted Shuji to have fun and realize his quirk was really cool. And so he rambled about how obviously the somatosensory cortex on Shuji's brain, or the part that deals with someone's sense of touch, had a much larger region allocated to his hands and arms, and not just because he had more of them either. In fact, his brain was probably one of the most highly adaptable, since he could change things and presumably each appendage had one part of the brain, despite it changing form whenever Shuji wanted it to. It was simply fascinating, and Izuku honestly wondered many new things which he didn't actually ask Shuji because he wasn't sure the other boy would know. For example, if he made more eyes, do they connect to the somatosensory cortex like usual, or do they send information to the occipital lobe? Or do they do both, and the information travels to the occipital lobe from the SS cortex? Same for his nose, ears, and mouth, because technically, the SS cortex only covered your sense of touch and not anything else. The other senses were covered by completely different areas of the brain, so how did that work? Shuji, in reply, sent back a picture of mint ice cream, labeled, "We forgot a flavor." That led to a rather large email chain debating on different ice cream flavors, again, before they agreed on it. Few things. Vanilla was underrated. Red velvet was overrated because it was really just chocolate but with dye you can taste. The only green ice cream that was naturally green was matcha, therefore disqualifying the others as being true, green ice creams. And bread in ice cream had to be treated very carefully so it wasn't bad. That last one was a bit more of a point of contention, since Shuji had chosen cookies and cream last time, which is technically an ice cream with bread. Other bread add-ons included cookie dough, brownie bites, and even graham crackers in one of the S-More's flavors Izuku had seen earlier. They were both in agreement that graham crackers were not something you should put in ice cream because it's just going to make sand, cookie dough and Oreo chunks were better, and brownie bites were on thin ice. Any bread done wrong could just get soggy, gross, and make the overall texture of the ice cream a nightmare. They agreed on the other 3 points pretty easily, though. Izuku found this ice cream company based in the US that had fun names for their flavors and sent one to Shuji. Why fish food? Because octopi eat fish. Shuji, in revenge, sent back a picture of a different flavor of theirs. Chunky monkey? Because you're bananas. It was good. It wasn't so bad being him. Sure, no one talked to him and thought he was weird, but those were the humans, and he didn't want to talk to them anyway. Humans said mean things for no reason, like saying he looked funny, or he'd never have any friends, or excluding him. They'd call him names and he'd always be picked last for PE, despite being bigger than almost everyone else. He didn't mind, per se, since he didn't really like PE either. His mother loved him really and truly, and let him have a pet. He liked animals a lot better than humans. He didn't like talking to anything that wasn't an animal, honestly, at least not out loud. If the kids at school would give him a chance, they'd see he was incredibly fast at typing and texting. So much so that his mom had actually gotten him a phone, just so he would feel more comfortable and have a way of communicating with people without opening his mouth. No one really liked it when he opened his mouth. His mom tried to get him to talk, but why, when they both knew sign language and he could just text her? It was better than opening your mouth and nothing coming out. He hadn't spoken in so long he wasn't certain he could. He would whisper to the animals, of course. It was quiet enough that his vocal cords didn't even vibrate, thus preventing his throat from hurting from trying to use them after so long, but it was enough for them to hear him, he knew. Animals were always better at listening than humans were. School was fine, when the humans weren't being terrible. He was getting fine grades, the food was fine, and it wasn't a long walk from home, but it did have stray cats on the way. He liked to feed them and whisper to them about his day. Sometimes he wished he could be a cat too, even if it was just a stray. They seemed to have it good. One day, he noticed another boy was feeding and whispering to the cats, and he recognized him from school. His nerves almost made him run, but he had bought special treats for the cats this morning and didn't want to have to explain to his mother why he had gotten them. Best to use them. He smiled shyly as he crouched down, and the other boy glanced at him. Neither of them said anything, just feeding the cats. He liked it. At the end of it, he felt like they might have been friends. Maybe he'd see the other boy again. The rumors about him were clearly wrong. Neither of them were what they said they were. They were just quiet people who liked animals more than people. Nothing wrong with that. It had been over a year since Izuku had met Shuji and Cheiko and Nedzu and everyone, and he was feeling way more confident than he probably had any right to be entirely honest. Nedzu had told him recently that he technically was starting high school education, and with middle school usually still 2 years away, that was frankly astounding. He was turning 10 in a month and he was really excited to finally be in double digits, like Kaken. Speaking of the explosive boy, he had mellowed out some. With Cheiko keeping him on the straight and narrow, as it were, he had completely ditched his old cronies and was more of an angry big brother than a bully now. Izuku was almost certain that school life would be much better if he went back now, but he was so far ahead and enjoying spending time with Nedzu that he wasn't planning on it anytime soon. Shuji had gotten a better mask that reminded him of a white-haired character from a ninja anime Izuku had seen was pretty popular, so it covered his neck all the way up past his ears. It looked really cool, in Izuku's opinion, and it never slipped down like his old ones did, so he thought it was a pretty big improvement. Based on how happy Shuji had been when he got it, he agreed. Cheiko, in the meantime, had been using Kaken and Shuji and Izuku, when the opportunity arose, as quirk training by keeping them up in the air for a long time, and she was also getting stronger. Actually, all 4 of them had been going to a dojo for several months now, to get strong and buff. They even met a nice boy at the dojo, but he was many years ahead of them in experience. Still, he was nice. Cheiko was probably the strongest, physically, out of all of them, something Kaken was quick to explode about. They had all been getting better, though, helping each other. In return for helping her stretch her quirk limits, Kaken was getting better at aerial combat and mobility. Izuku was pretty sure that it would be any day that he was using explosions to propel himself through the air even without her assistance. Shuji was faster at switching between appendages and he was really good at stealth, despite how tall he was. Izuku, in the meantime, had been getting smarter. Nedzu was overjoyed to teach him everything he needed to know about the human mind and body language, to the point where Izuku could dissect anyone he came across just on the street. Not that he would, of course, he still got nervous talking to people he didn't know, but he was still pretty good. Nedzu had made it a game to watch the security cameras in the school and have Izuku just rip into people and dissect them completely. It was hard without the audio and not having a perfect view, but it was really funny. He also got to watch the entrance exam, which was really fun. He was currently walking back from UA, on his way to the station, completely lost in his head. After school, the other 3 were planning on going to Kaken's house to play some video games, just to unwind after most of the others had the first tests of the season. He tripped over something and barely managed to catch himself in time. He looked back, eyes wide, to see a person slouched against the wall. "Oh, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to trip over you. Are you all right?" The person, a lizard-looking guy, wasn't even paying attention, but he murmured something Izuku couldn't hear. He leaned closer with a frown. "That just a lizard, can't be a doctor, all that training wasted?" Izuku frowned more. Was this what he thought it was? Sir, are you okay?" Unfocused eyes trailed up from the street to meet his. "Nah, kid, I'm not, but don't you worry about it." "What happened?" "It's nothing, kid, really. You didn't notice when I tripped over you earlier, so obviously it's something to make you this upset. Why don't you tell me about it?" The lizard man shook his head, purple hair falling over his listless eyes. "No point, I should have known better. No one wants to be treated by a doctor who looks like this." "Like what?" The guy stared. "Kid, I have a mutation quirk." "So they didn't hire you because you have a mutation quirk?" "Yeah? I mean, it was just an internship, it's not that big of a deal." Izuku nodded once, then held out his hand. "Come with me." The man looked confused. What?" Izuku smiled brightly, putting on all his charms. "I know someone who can help sort out your problem." The lizard man stumbled to his feet with a hefty haul from Izuku, and Izuku was quick to hold his hand, turning back in the direction he had just come. Oh, I didn't introduce myself. I'm Midoriya Izuku, and I'm turning 10 soon. Iguchi Shuichi, 15. Nice to meet you, I guess. Izuku nodded. Nice to meet you, Mr. Iguchi. Now, you said you were looking for an internship? For what, if I may ask? I want to be a doctor when I grow up, and I have some training already, but to go forward I needed more experience to get into a good med school. Izuku frowned, but continued to tug the teenager along. And just because you're green and have scales they said no? Did they even look at your credentials? But, me maybe? I dunno. Izuku continued to pry information out of him, distracting him fully from the fact they were walking into Yue, until Izuku knocked once on Nedzu's door and then walked in. Hi Nedzu. Oh, hello Izuku. I see you brought a friend. Izuku smiled up at the teen. This is Mr. Iguchi, and he's a victim of mutant discrimination. Nedzu's smile got wider. Is he now? How unfortunate. Mr. Iguchi, would you care for some tea while we discuss our plans going forward? Shuichi looked between the smiling young boy and the smiling rodent he now recognized as the principal of UA and sat down dumbly. What had he gotten himself into? Izuku was more than happy to text the group chat that he was going to be a little late, because he got to help Mr. Iguchi. After a couple more times of being addressed like that, he had insisted on them dropping the Mr., but Izuku wasn't about to stop. He seemed like a nice guy. Nedzu was quick to write down the names of the places and doctors who hadn't hired him on grounds of his quirk, because there were more than one, it seemed, to make him that upset when Izuku had found him, and then phoned Recovery Girl and asked her to come down to the office. Mr. Iguchi happened to have his resume on him, or maybe Nedzu had pulled it from the files of the doctors he had probably hacked, and she wordlessly read it over, checking his credentials. Perfect, I've been looking for an assistant. Mr. Iguchi was frozen, dumbstruck, as Nedzu cheerfully offered him a job working under Recovery Girl, who gave Izuku a pat on the head and some fish-shaped gummies, for double what any of the other companies were offering. Izuku had waved goodbye when the contracts came out, promising he'd be back tomorrow before dashing out the door and running to the station. He didn't find anyone else to trip over on his way, so he considered that a success. He was only half an hour later than usual, and his friends very quickly added him into the game. So Midori, Cheiko started, what kept you? Kaken scoffed. Zuku probably found another loser to adopt. Been too long since arms, he's due. Shuji snorted. Are you one of his adopted losers, then? Kaken predictably exploded, and Izuku couldn't help but giggle. I dunno about adoption, but I did help someone get a job. He couldn't before because he has a mutation quirk, so no one would hire him, but I sorted it out. He didn't notice the other three exchange glances. They had, over the past year, come to realize what exactly Izuku meant when he sorted things out, and were quite certain that someone was about to lose their job if nothing else. That's great, Midori. Discrimination is wrong. He nodded, quite proud. Recovery Girl has a new assistant now. I'm glad I'm going to see more of Mr. Iguchi. Kaken clicked his tongue. How old is this guy? 30. 15. Cheiko was the only one who nodded. Sure, her parents were making more money in Hero Central, but she knew firsthand that there was no shame in wanting a job at a young age like that. So if he's working with Recovery Girl, is he a nurse? He wanted to be a doctor, but all the further classes needed him to have experience, so he was looking for an internship. Kaken chuckled. No better internship than at UA, lucky BS Kaken. Language. F you. Izuku rolled his eyes. Trying to get Kaken to not swear was an exercise in futility. Cheiko hooped as she slid into first place, and everyone else startled, focusing back in on the game. I'm going to beat your buttes. Cheiko. Hee hee, sorry Midori. Todoroki Shudo felt pretty much nothing, if he could help it. Emotions were dangerous, and the ones he felt only hurt besides. Anger, sadness, grief, fear, guilt. They were all terrible, so best to keep everything under wraps. It had been 5 years since his oldest brother had disappeared. Father said he was dead, and Fuyumi and Natsuo seemed to believe him, but Shudo wasn't so sure. Knowing what his brother had gone through, since he was going through it himself, he had probably run away. Shudo hoped he was doing okay wherever he was. Maybe once father was gone, he'd come back. He missed Tuya. Todoroki Tuya, known to most as Dabi, was not having a great time. Pickpocketing and mild shoplifting could only get him so far, and he had been on the streets, going from place to place, for 5 years. It wasn't fun and squatting was worse, but he was used to it. Anything was better than going home, he told himself. He eyed the crows perched on the power lines above him and sighed, shoving burned hands into pockets and ignoring the ache contact gave. You sure have it lucky, huh? All the flying you want, free. I guess that's why they have the saying free as a bird, huh? Anyone want to trade? I hear not many animals have quirks. What do you say, you take my fire, I take your wings? The birds cawed back at him and he chuckled. No takers? Come on, cut this kid some slack. Normally, he didn't like being called a kid. He was 17, almost 18, and he had been taking care of himself for longer than his SPRM donor had cared, and that had to count for something. Maybe it was just something about the birds that got him all sentimental. Izuku heard the crying, the heart-wrenching sobs that were trying to be quiet, and he stopped. Sure, it was none of his business, but even if he wasn't going to be a hero, it was a backup plan for when he dismantled the current government, but not high on his priority list. He had always been one to help people, and that wasn't going to change today. He peeked his head in the alley, making no sounds. It was a boy. He had purple hair that stuck up like Cheiko had run her fingers through it, and his back was to Izuku, hunched over something on the ground. He edged himself into the corner of the boy's vision and saw him stiffen. Are you all right? Purple Ice shot to him and then away, not giving him an answer. Izuku's eyes followed until he saw what the boy was crying over. It was a cat. He immediately stiffened and gasped. The poor creature was wheezing lightly and Izuku could see red matted on its fur. Who did this? The boys both startled at the anger in Izuku's voice, but he quickly recovered. If you can give me names, I can make sure this never happens again. The boy's eyes narrowed in confusion. What could you possibly do? He's going to die, it's too late. He looked back at the cat, breath stuttering, and gently pet it. They followed me, it's my fault. Izuku crouched down, edging closer. It was most certainly not your fault, unless you somehow made them do this. The boy flinched, but shook his head. Then it wasn't your fault. At least you were able to be here for him. Izuku looked down at the cat and his mouth pursed. But still, give me names. This is cruel and should not go unpunished. Hitoshi honestly didn't know what to think of this innocent-looking boy who could sound so dark talking about his bullies, but he had kept his distance, which Hitoshi appreciated. That it wouldn't help anyway. The school wouldn't do anything. I can work around that, but that's not my point, Izuku grumbled. Hitoshi wasn't really listening. I should have known I couldn't have nice things, he whispered, but I thought that just maybe, I could have this. I wasn't careful, they followed me, and then they saw him and started throwing, his breath hitched, Aurochs and... He sobbed again and Izuku looked on with sadness. Do you want a hug? The boy looked at him in confusion, but nodded. Izuku nodded back, whipping out his flip phone. He scrolled for a bit then pressed call. Hello. Hi, Shojiji, are you available right now? That I am why? Okay, please come to this location, see you soon. Izuku hung up and sent the location as promised, getting back a series of question marks and putting his phone away. He shouldn't be long, but no one I know gives better hugs. The boy nodded slowly, still confused, and Izuku started a little. Oh, but I could hug you until he got here, if that would help? He nodded again and Izuku carefully crept forward to wrap his arms around the taller boy. I'm sorry they hurt you. Hitoshi clammed up, knowing this wouldn't last. This kid, whoever he was, would hear about his quirk and would leave. Sure, violence against animals was wrong, so maybe he'd give him the benefit of the doubt for another 30 seconds, but he was bringing his friend too. Oh God, what if it was just to beat Hitoshi up? What if this was all an elaborate setup from Hachiko and this kid was small to throw him off? But the hug was really warm. the light from the street was blocked out as a tall figure came in and he heard a voice rumble. Izuku, you gave me no details. Hitoshi paled. This guy was huge. Izuku leapt up. Shuji. This guy needs a hug, bullies again, and you're the best hugger I know. Shuji raised an eyebrow. This guy? Do you even know his name? The green one blanched and released Hitoshi before bowing. Oh my god, I'm so sorry, I hugged you and you don't even know my name. I'm Midoriya Izuku, this is Shuji Nezu, my friend. Shinso Hitoshi. Shuji walked down the alley, footfalls near silent. Nice to meet you. I hear you need a hug. Hitoshi was nervous, but stood slowly and nodded. It was really nice. Izuku had been right, Shuji was a really good hugger. So, those names. Hitoshi peeked out from the web of arms to look at the bright-eyed green child. You still want their names? Of course. Izuku, Shuji rumbled, and Hitoshi felt it through his chest. Please do not blackmail them. I hardly call it blackmailing, Gigi. That nickname still makes me sound like a grandpa. You happen to be the most responsible of the group. No, wait, no distraction, do not threaten them. I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, so Takashi and the gang just decided to back off on their own? Is that what his name was? Ha, I never knew. Izuku. A little motivation goes a long way. Hitoshi couldn't help it, he laughed. It started as a giggle, then a chuckle, and then a chortle, and then a full belly laugh, cocooned in the warm embrace of a really tall boy who apparently had also been subject to Izuku at one point. Eventually, it turned back into crying and he sank to the ground, arms never leaving their place wrapped around him. He felt Shuji still and barely heard him hiss, "They did that to the cat?" Izuku hummed darkly. I changed my mind, Shinso, we need those names. Hitoshi left that alleyway 3 names lighter and his phone 2 numbers heavier. They were nice. Kuda would probably like them too.